Natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. A lot of stuff to get into today, number of things to talk about. We will hang out with Todd Lebo in the noon hours. We typically do on a Tuesday. A little fact or fiction in that noon hour with Todd Lebo. We will talk some college football with Braden Gall in the 1 o'clock hour, College Football Insider. And coming up an hour from now, we'll hang out with Matt Tate from R1S1Sports.com covering the Kansas Jayhawks. Get his thoughts on the football season so far with a few games remaining, a game against Tech this weekend, and a possible, look ahead. They survived the letdown last week. Now it's the look ahead this week before the Sunflower Showdown next week. So what was a big 4-week stretch after the bye week for KU, or 5-week stretch, I guess that would be. And they have handled business with the win over Oklahoma and then going up to Ames and getting the win for the first time since 2008. And now you've got to take care of Tech and then get ready for the Sunflower Showdown. We'll talk some football with him and also college basketball underway last night, and all 3 of the local teams underway and playing last night, and 2 of the 3 getting wins. 2 of the 3 also played much inferior opponents than Kansas State played. But KU taking care of business over North Carolina Central, Missouri over Arkansas Pine Bluff, and then K-State last night running into a pretty good USC team, and Isaiah Collier is for real. I mean, that guy is freaking good. And for all the talk about Bronny and the freshman there at USC, the freshman player on USC is Collier. And then maybe when Bronny is cleared to play, he'll step out there on the floor and be like, all right, they got a few freshman studs here at USC, but Collier is dynamite. And you saw that as soon as he fouled out, K-State started getting back in the game. Unfortunately, it felt like it was too little too late. And not enough even for too little, too late. Got within, 6, I think is how close it was after being down by 15 or 16. 6 or 8 around there. I know it was under double digits, and I know it was, at least 8. But there was a scare. They were knocking down some shots and things like that. So I think K-State showed themselves well against a really talented team in USC, and K-State has a lot to figure out. And first game of the season is always kind of difficult to see where you are and guys playing, and also Tomlin not on the team right now. That makes a big difference. So we'll get into some college basketball. We'll talk specifically with Matt Tate about KU.
Within 8, by the way.
Was it 8?
Within 8 with about 2.5 minutes left. Within 6 right after halftime.
Yeah.
But it was 72-64 after a Tyler Perry bucket.
Yeah. And so, we'll certainly talk some more college basketball as the days go on and
months go on.
That's right. K-State's got Bellarmine coming up on Friday. That's a fun one. Maybe I take the family to that. Go check out that game. Brandon fought from Diamondbacks. Bellarmine's where he went to school there in Louisville. And then KU taking on Manhattan. And Missouri with a big one against Memphis, and a talented Memphis team on Friday night. So if you happen to be someone that lives in Tennessee and you are a Memphis and Tennessee Vols fan, a little double dip. Mizzou Memphis on Friday, and then Mizzou Tennessee on Saturday. That would be weird if you were both a Memphis and Tennessee Vols fan, but figure it out, guys.
A house divided. There's a license plate for that somewhere.
That's a good point.
I'm sure.
You know what? There you go. It could be. I was thinking about one person. It could be a family. You got, all right, we're going to go to the Memphis and Missouri game for him, and then we're going to the Missouri and Tennessee game for her. Whatever. That's coming up this weekend. And Missouri's still a dog in that game against Tennessee. Still getting 1.5 points in that one, while KU 3.5-point favorites against Tech, and K-State 3-touchdown favorites. All right, 913-912-4810 is the phone number. Text line, I should say, to be a part of the show. Let's get into it. We talked a little college basketball there. It is kind of difficult to really fully invest in college basketball right now just because the NFL is going on, college football is going on. it would be different in years where the Chiefs were struggling. In college football, you had some struggles with some teams, or they were just middle of the road. It might be a little bit easier to, okay, here's the next thing that we can kind of get excited about. But it just totally feels like it's on the 8th or 9th page in the sports section. Kids out there, the sports section is part of a newspaper that would come out.
It's like on the 3rd or 4th page of Google. If you were going to Google sports happening now.
Yeah, search more, or when you scroll down. Yeah, so it was like this paper that had this black ink and pictures on it.
Okay, so paper is a thing that... So it starts as trees, actually, which is crazy.
Paper is used for a lot of things besides just rolling. There's a number of things that paper is used for. You're right. It comes from trees and et cetera.
And not leaves. I know that's confusing.
Yeah. No, it feels like it's like 6 or 7 pages deep in the sports section right now. And it's just hard to kind of... And there's so many new players, and it takes a little while to sort of get to know some of the players and how they're going to play. And, K-State loses to USC, and it's like, okay, let's see what they look like over the next couple of months and on into conference play and see what they can do in the NCAA tournament. I mean, Michigan State. Oh, no, now they're not on the number 1 line for Joe Lenardi and his bracketology. His preseason bracketology and now his updated bracketology. Michigan State falls off. Oh, my goodness.
Devastating.
LSU women
their
lose
season's
last
over.
night to Colorado by like 14 points.
Dion's got him turned around.
Yeah, and Kim Mulkey was totally fine with it. She seemed to handle it well.
At least she was
very well-adjusted person after a loss.
Very, and at least she was dressed like an absolute lunatic, and I'm saying that. I would wear her jacket, and I think it makes her look like a lunatic.
That's a great point.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, and that's part of the issue with sort of college basketball. Whereas like college football is the first football that counts because you got the preseason games, but it's baseball, and it's been a while when it's just baseball and some NBA and, the NBA playoffs and et cetera, and then college football gets there and it's boom. And Texas, Alabama early on. Who wins this one? Still in the college football playoff hunt. Who loses this one? Who knows what's going to happen the rest of the way? Like there's so much more implications. Just makes it a little tougher, and it'll be a slow burn. We'll get more and more into it, and we'll talk about some individual things. Hunter Dickinson coming down in transition and hitting a spot up 3 at the top of the key, or a pull up 3 at the top of the key. Yeah, it's pretty legit.
I'm ready to say it. I think he's good. That's what I'm willing to say on November 7th. The high today is 75 degrees. I don't feel bad for not wanting to talk about college basketball.
That's right.
It's just,
And we're talking about college basketball while saying it's difficult right now to get into and have the slow burn of college basketball.
Because, you hit on it. When your college football team stinks, college basketball season, look, KU fans know this better than anybody because they had the worst football and the best basketball. Mm-hmm. That little period of time when you can finally stop wondering if David Beatty's going to get this thing turned around and you move over to Bill Self's warm embrace, that's something you rush into if you're a KU sports fan. Right now, all 3 teams have football that's not only worth paying attention to, with the exception of KU. Like that's the football schools. The football team is the football school for Mizzou, K-State. Right now, this deserves all of your attention. Yeah. And KU has been a completely different environment for the last 3 years.
Dylan, let me ask you, our resident KU. Do you, like in years past when KU football had struggled and KU basketball was, one of the best in the nation, and sort of that anticipation, the build-up, late night and on into the first games of the season, et cetera, is there that sort of anticipation and excitement because college football has been so good and they're already at 7 wins and you've got a Tech game, they beat Oklahoma, went to Ames, Tech this week, and Sunflower Showdown, looks like it's not only going to be a good one, but could be where KU has a better record than Kansas State and wins head-to-head this year. Is the same sort of excitement for college basketball there for you, even with the number 1 team in the land?
I think the excitement's still there, but I will agree with your point that it snuck up on me where the game started and I missed the start of the game last night because the past,
7 o'clock?
I'm watching recruiting websites for basketball during football season, but now it's like I'm waiting for Saturday during football season, and then basketball starts up. It's kind of a nice little surprise.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's and that's how it's been for a number of schools that aren't stud basketball programs like KU. When K-State's had really good football programs, and Missouri, while KU was struggling to find a coach, Missouri was winning the East and the SEC, and with Gary Pinkel and then their struggles. And certainly basketball was a struggle with Kim Anderson and then Konzo and all of that. And so, there's an excitement around the teams, but I think it's a credit to the college football coaches and the programs of what they've done this year that the excitement sort of starts to sneak up on you because of how much fun this college football season has been. And it's been a long time since everything has been as healthy as it is right now, or feels as healthy as it is right now. The Chiefs, the number 1 seed, Sporting knocking off the lower cases and staying in the playoff hunt. College football, all 3 teams are looking at 8 or double-digit win seasons. College basketball, number 1, Kansas, K-State and Mizzou, if you follow the also receiving votes, I think, in the top 35 or whatever, those programs as well, and a lot of hope and anticipation for that with a number of new players from Mizzou that look really talented. Can they, make the Sweet 16? Kansas State building off what they did last year and a number of players there. And it's as healthy as ever. And I think the reason why it can be a slow burn is because it's all healthy. Yep. And there's not like one part right now that is just so bad that you're looking forward to the next thing.
Sports seasons overlap. We're all pretty comfortable with that. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's sort of sad. For the Chiefs and Royals, for a similar thing with some similar fan bases, training camp is the beginning of Chiefs season, if not the NFL draft. But really, training camp is the beginning of Chiefs season, and that's when we stop leading with the Royals and start leading with whatever happened in St. Joe when the Royals stink. When the Royals have a playoff game that you got to pay attention to,
yes.
Hell yeah, dude. I would much rather miss the beginning of a season's arc than the end of it. The problem is for the Royals, they have allowed us to go ahead and step away from the end of it. KU football, more so than the others, obviously, for a long time. Let you forget about the end of that season. Because late night was the beginning of the season, and then certainly real basketball being played, hallelujah. But right now, when you have a bunch of good teams in good places, and like you said, healthy programs, what a blessing to go, I don't know that we have to care about what KU does until January. And they have a good non-con schedule. There's some fun games on here. Mizzou obviously being one of them.
It's a side dish to the entree right now for KU, K-State, and Mizzou. It's the nice side dish. It's a little corn over there, a little mashed potatoes, but the steak and the entree is what we're watching in college football. It's like, oh, let me dip in a little, give me a bit of corn in between this steak, mashed potatoes here, to watch this game last night. While, multiple TVs, 3 TVs with the NFL game, and then KU and Mizzou, and then that's over, and then the NFL game, and then K-State and USC. So, it was nice sort of to keep track, to see all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
And the next game will be on Friday. Friday night, we'll be watching some more college basketball on into the weekend of college football, and then, NFL just getting to sit back and you get to enjoy a full Sunday of not doing anything, Josh. Good for you. Congratulations.
I get 2 in a row, by the way, because Monday Night Football with the Eagles.
What are you going to do?
Sit on my couch.
It's like 3 in a row because you got the first and the noon and 3 o'clock windows. Good for you, man.
It's nice. I'm really excited about that. It is too bad that the primetime games next week are absolute tire fires. But, we could all use a chance to catch up on some sleep.
That's right. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. I do want to get into a number of things with the Chiefs. I looked back at, some of the things in the Dolphins game, still looking at that and how impressive that game was defensively and what the Chiefs did. We talked about the average yards to go for the Dolphins on third down being over 12 yards, average yards to go on third down. I also looked at how many yards short they were of actually reaching the first down, which was interesting. So we'll get into that. And then I looked specifically at every single first and second down play just to see where was the difference, where was the Chiefs' dominance there to where there were so many of those third down plays. We'll get into that and sort of how the defense has been and against a team like Miami and what other teams are doing against the Chiefs, which is kind of a connection there. I also want to get into the Chiefs' offense, where the improvements can come, the wide receiver snap counts, the trend over the last 3 weeks. And then we always do the playoff eliminator when the teams make the postseason, and we know who the 7 teams are in each conference, and we look at the 5 or 6 different indicators of the teams that have made the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl, and I think 5 years it's picked 8 of the 10 Super Bowl participants and 7 of the 8 or 4 of the 5 Super Bowl champions. So I looked at the teams that are all in the playoffs right now, and then a couple of others, just to see where they are and how many of those categories they meet, to see if there are teams that you're like, okay, no, this team is on pace to be a team that when they make the playoffs would be a team that could win the Super Bowl. So we'll do that as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. 913-912-4810. Get to your texts as well and continue rolling on this Tuesday edition at Sports Radio 810 WHB. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. 913-912-4810 text says, when do the Royals play this playoff game? When's this thing happening? Royals playoff?
I'd say I would bet money that we will get a Royals playoff game by 20 something.
Yeah, right, yeah. No,
I'm going to say 2058. I bet we get one.
I would agree with that.
I'll take the under.
Yeah. Oh, man, it's difficult. I don't know. Might actually be that year. You might have just hit it. I mean, Vegas is so brilliant with these lines. I mean, just so good how close they are.
And by that point, also the baseball season will be 300 games. So I don't actually know when the season will end.
Actually, by that time, the baseball season might be 42.
Hey, you know what?
42 games.
You know what? I'm listening.
Might be the exact opposite.
I'm open to this idea.
2 games a week. All right, 913-912-4810 is the text line. Also, big shout out to Google Fiber with all the different TVs and the devices rolling last night, with the college basketball going, with some NFL football, with the Chargers and Jets and some NBA action and all of that stuff, and the devices. Google Fiber, award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts, or hidden fees, available up to 5 gigs if you need it. But if you're just rocking the 1 gig like we are, it is the same price since 2012. They are not continuing each and every year to hike up the rates because they could. They're just not doing it. So Google Fiber, unlimited internet for everyone in your home and their devices. It is awesome. So thank you to Google Fiber. A few things as it relates to the Chiefs. The defense for this Chiefs team is, now becoming the identity of this team. I want to hear Marcus Spears real quick. Marcus Spears last night on SportsCenter, or it might have been NFL Live yesterday afternoon, but Marcus Spears weighed in, and they were talking about the Chiefs and the win over the Dolphins, and certainly there's some conversations about the offensive struggles, but Marcus Spears went in and talked about what this Chiefs identity is right now moving forward.
This is a great defensive team with a great quarterback. Not a great defensive team with a great offense.
Yep,
that's what it is right now. That's where Kansas City is as a football team. And look, no problem with it when you can hold the number 1 offense to 14 points total, right? We all know what Miami can be offensively. We've been talking about this Chiefs defense all season long and how well they've come through. But Steve Spagnuolo deserves a lot of credit for how he's dialing up these pressures. And understand that we are struggling offensively right now, so let's create some negative plays.
And they've done that, and they did that in the game against the Dolphins. And we talked so much about third downs yesterday. Third downs this, third downs that, the average yards to go, 12.25 on third downs. But I wanted to look at first and second down because that's something Steve Spagnuolo has harped on, is how do you keep teams from going forward on fourth down, those aggressive teams? Brandon Staley, aggressive team. How do you do that? Well, you're better on first and second down. You've got Mike McDaniel, aggressive guy on fourth down. How do you keep them from continuing to go forward on fourth down? Well, you're better on first and second down. Oh, by the way, next week's conversation will be how do you keep the Philadelphia Eagles from always picking up those fourth downs? Well, don't let them have 4th and 1. Keep them out of 4th and 1 situations. And when it's, third and averaging 12.25, yeah, you're keeping them out of 4th and shorts. And the 12 plays that Miami ran on defense, again, they averaged over 12 yards to go on third down. They came up 8.5 yards short of the first down on average. You ain't going for it on fourth down. The only fourth down they attempted was at the end of the game when they had to, and it was 4th and 10, and then Tua fumbled the football. It wasn't a bad snap. I know Rich Eisen said, errant snap. No, he just dropped it. You know why? Because the Chiefs had people at the line of scrimmage, and he was catching it, and as he was catching the ball, he was looking over to his right to see who was coming and where the blitz was coming from, and he dropped the football. That's the pressure that you put on an opposing offense. It's a little bit like, hey, college basketball last night. When you've got a team that presses, constantly pressing, sometimes you feel like there are 6 guys on the court, and you're sped up, and you're trying to throw the ball, and your mind's going too fast, and you turn the ball over. You dribble it off your foot, or you throw the ball, and you don't fake a pass to make a pass, as you still teach the kids to do, and the ball's tipped, and another guy picks it off and lays it up or dunks it. And in this game, Tua, 4th and 10, have to have it. The Chiefs have so many guys at the line of scrimmage, 2-point stances, who's coming, who's going, moving around. Take the snap right in his hands. Goes right through his hands. He goes and gets it. Game over. It's the only 4th down attempt they had. 8.5 yards short of the first down marker averaged on 4th downs.
It's amazing, and the 4th down play in particular, it's a great way of comparing it to like dribbling off your foot because your eyes are up or something. You just make one of those little technical mistakes.
6 guys on the field. There's 12 players on defense for the Chiefs, and everyone's blitzing.
I do wish he would have caught the snap just to see what was going to happen with Brian Cook, because there's just fire in his eyes there. I can't. All of the little. Every once in a while, the hypotheticals that go around of like, all right, if I put you behind the Eagles' offensive line, you had to play quarterback for one series, like, could you get a first down with the best offensive minds in football? Could you scheme up? Could you take one carry and not die? There's nothing on earth that you could do to be ready for Brian Cook in that moment, screaming through a gap, ready to absolutely decapitate you. Ultimately, I would have dropped the ball, and I also would have dropped my pants. I would have had a problem.
I'm glad he dropped the football.
Because you didn't want to see that kind of violence that early in the morning?
No. Watching it from the end zone view, I'm glad he dropped the football because when the Chiefs had man-to-man on the outside, the Dolphins ran the Tyreek Hill little out, and then Jalen Waddle was running a post, and I think it was Justin Reed was like 10 yards down the field and was guarding Jalen Waddle. And once Waddle cleared the out from Tyreek Hill, he was pretty wide open.
Spags was ready for it.
One-on-one middle of the field with
Get the ball
Justin
there.
Reed.
Get the ball there, Tua. Good luck.
I mean,
it's crazy.
If he catches the ball at like the 15-yard line and he's got 20 yards to each side of him and a one-on-one with Justin Reed to tie the game, I don't want to see that.
No, probably not.
I don't want to see that. But that's where, like, throughout the game, the pressure, because on that drive, Tua also had that fluttering football that fell between, was it Cedric Wilson that was running deep and Jalen Waddle that was, or it was Mostert that was running underneath, or Wilson. It was a running back underneath and Cedric Wilson deep, and he threw it right in the middle of it. And it was like, was that ball tipped? No. Did that ball come out of his hand wrong? It was a perfect spiral. And it just landed between them because he was looking at who was blitzing him. There was a throw to, I can't remember who it was, but it was in the third quarter, and the Chiefs were coming after him. And as he's throwing, his right plant foot, because he's left-handed, if you flipped it, how beautiful that would be. His right plant foot already started lifting and going back towards his left foot as he's throwing because he saw the pressure coming his way. And it was an accurate pass.
You talk about getting in the timing and the rhythm.
Yes.
It's not all just that. The timing and the rhythm isn't always the quickest thing possible. There's a rhythm to the progressions and to when the receivers are coming open and all of that. There was a caller on postgame who said a little phrase that I've thought about the last couple of days in regards to what the defense has allowed the Chiefs to do. I think it's largely built on this idea that there will be some growth still from the offense. It's still young receivers. They're still figuring out what it is. Even if they don't change the rotation, maybe things are a little smoother after the bye, some self-scouting, all of that. But what G on the postgame show said, is that, not Brad, is that, as far as I'm aware, would have been a hell of a call-in. I think he was busy at the time. But he said that the Chiefs are winning on the learning curve. And that is the defense allowing them to do that. I have said it in less eloquent ways, many a post-game show. We've talked about it many times this year. When you win an ugly game, you can say, okay, we got some stuff to work on. We have some issues. We have some things that we know are going to be things to evaluate and tinker with. But that's way harder to swallow in a loss. You lose that game because of your flaws and your mistakes, and all of a sudden now you're talking about changing your fate in January. It's one of the reasons I'm still a little annoyed about the Lions loss and still totally annoyed about the Broncos loss. I'm not going to get over it anytime soon. I don't plan on it. But when you are able to win on the learning curve, last year it was the inverse. Last year, Patrick Mahomes and the offense were winning on their own learning curve, while the defense was starting, as far as I can tell, 500 rookies or first-year guys in the scheme. When the veteran of the group, Justin Reed, says after the fact they weren't really comfortable to that Bengals regular season game in week 13 or 14, whenever that was, that is an incredible, I don't even know if it's a sign of a good team. It might be a positive indicator of how good a team can be. Can you win with one side of the football while the other side figures it out? It's very hard to win with average football, hoping everything gets better. But right now, we're saying the defense is the identity of this team right now, and the other side has Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid trying to solve their problems. that is a great place to be in, but it would not make you feel a whole lot better if they were a 3-win team right now, and that's thanks to the defense.
The Chiefs did a lot of the heavy lifting defensively on second down. So we talked about how great the third down was getting off the field, but they also pointed it out on the broadcast, and it was pretty evident that all of the third and longs, on first down against the Dolphins on the year averaged 7.4 yards per play on first down. They actually averaged 7 yards per play against the Chiefs on first down. But I want to get into something as to when you add a little context to that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That seems high.
It was a little surprising, but there is some context to it. On second down, the Miami Dolphins average almost 7 yards per play on second down as well. The Miami Dolphins gained 2.3 yards per play on second down against the Chiefs. 2.3 yards per play on second down. They had 18 plays and picked up 44 yards on second down. 11 of the 18 plays were 0 yards or negative plays.
Wow.
They also had 2 penalties on second down, a holding and an intentional grounding. So there's 13. They had 2 other plays that were 1-yard gains. So on second down, 0, 1, or negative, also the fumble for a touchdown. They had a gain of 12, of 14, 6, 8, and then the 31-yard touchdown. Those were the other 5 plays outside of the 13 of the 18.
It's unbelievable.
It was a gain of 6, a gain of 8, a gain of 12, a gain of 14, and then a gain of 31. Second down, the Chiefs were dominant against Miami. Some of that is because maybe there was some second and 10s.
Yep.
So maybe you didn't have to worry about the run as much and the play action. And I think the Dolphins have been exposed that if they cannot get the running game going, the offense has really struggled. How can they continue to be an efficient passing offense if the running game isn't there is something they are working on in the bye week. When we're talking about how do the Chiefs improve offensively and who are they throwing the ball to, and is it on the wide receivers to step up and play better and get open, etc., the Dolphins are probably looking at it and saying, if a team is selling out to stop the run, how are we then going to put points on the board and drive the football and score if we can't run it first?
Yeah.
Because when they're running it first, they're dynamite. They are absolute dynamite, and they are a powder keg each and every time they touch the football. Not running it, they haven't been able to really put much up against some of these teams. But the context for first down, Josh, is so 28 plays, they gained 196 yards. So 7 yards per play.
Right.
It's surprising.
Were both of those late runs on first down?
They were 25 and 19.
Okay.
They were.
All right. Interesting.
But here's how it affects drives. Drive 1, 15 yards on first down. Next play, 0. Now it's 2nd and 10. Second drive, 6 yards on first down, 17 yards on first down, 0. Incomplete pass. Now you're facing 2nd and 10. Third drive, 10 yards on first down. Next play, 1 yard on first down. Fourth drive, 3 and out, 0. It's incomplete pass on first down. Fifth drive, 9, 19, 3. The next play was a fumble, the Tyreek Hill fumble. They gained 5 yards on first down and 3 yards on first down. They had a holding penalty on first down, so now they're, first and 20. They had a 25-yarder, a 19-yarder, and then the next play was 0. So while they're averaging 7 yards per play, what we've seen defenses do against the Chiefs, and what I believe Steve Spagnuolo's strategy against the Dolphins, not only getting them off their timing and stopping the run, but you can give up some bigger chunks, but the longer they have to drive, the more plays they have to run, the better chance there is a negative play or a 0-yard gain. And that's what the Chiefs, it's like the Chiefs, boom, there's a 10-yard play, a 13-yard play, a 14-yard play. They are rolling. Incomplete, gain of 1, incomplete, punt. Like, what the hell happened?
Yep.
Well, those chunks happened. It's like you gained 50 yards on that drive. Right, 45 came on one play. And then the next 3, it was 5 yards and you punt. Rather than consistent, they're going 7, they're going 8, they're picking up 6, they're picking up 11, you're picking up another 7. Those big chunks and then 0, it's not how you sustain a drive unless that big chunk is 40, 50, 60 yards, and the Chiefs didn't give that up to the Dolphins. That's where the context of they gained 7 yards per play, but they had 8 plays that were 0 negative yards or holding or penalties just in general on those first downs. Put you behind the chains, and now you're punting.
One other thing that just sort of it's a mix in with everything else here defensively. But talking to Nate Taylor, the Athletic, he was in Germany for the game a little bit. He was in the locker room and asking one consistent question to several defensive backs that I think paints another incredible picture of this game, both from the players' execution and from the coaching battle between Spags and Mike McDaniel. He asked, I can't remember who it was exactly. I think it was Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Mike Edwards, Joshua Williams. We kind of went through, like, he talked to guys who, Trent McDuffie, as well as Williams, I think. Guys who usually tell him the truth about things like this, sort of open-ended questions of, did Miami do anything offensively to surprise you? Did they do anything that surprised you? Nope. Let me go ask this guy. Did they do anything to surprise you? No, they really didn't. Went to Joshua Williams. Hey, man, did they do anything different out there? Really, Joshua Williams? You always tell me the truth, according to Nate. And that was another consistent element where this defense was outrageously prepared for all of those things. And the Dolphins picked a wild time to not try to do a new wrinkle with Tyreek Hill, because that's something that he has been able to do. His speed is in and of itself surprising, right? Like there is an element to his existence that is hard to prepare for. But when you have everything in front of you, and I think it's so important, the running game element that you've mentioned there as well, they were just disciplined, playing good run defense, and then the Dolphins did not have a counterpunch to the counterpunch, which is the entire chess game of the NFL. Maybe that's Mike McDaniel still being a very young head coach and realizing, like, okay, well, if we see him in the playoffs, I got to bring out some new things. I got to see if this printing press keeps working. It's McVay who has struggled in the second half of the year over a few seasons, right? Another offensive genius who maybe runs out of ideas at the halfway point and is starting to get caught up to by the rest of the league. But there is so much that goes into that success from this defense, from the coaching and execution standpoint, and the Chiefs defense being the better coached unit than the Dolphins offense that has been absolutely fireworks shows all year long.
Dylan, you were you're good. Real quick, and then we'll take a break. I want to go back and look and watch the all. I don't even need to watch the all 22. I guess I could just watch the condensed game. I was thinking about this as you were talking about they didn't do anything, or why wasn't there a new wrinkle with Tyreek Hill? The players saying they didn't do anything different. Yeah, I'm going to go back and look, but it certainly felt like every time Tyreek Hill crouched behind either the tight end or the tackle, he got the ball on that play.
Yeah, interesting.
Again, that's just anecdotal in my mind. Every time it crashed, it was either a little pop pass or it was a reverse or it was a throw to him. It's a route that was set up for him. Maybe he didn't get the ball, but it was a route set up for him, and then Tua's now scrambling or whatever. It certainly felt like every time Tyreek was crouched behind, he was trying to hide because he was a big part of the play. And I don't know if that was some sort of a tell or not. I'd have to go back and chart every single one of them, but it certainly felt like that because I haven't watched every Dolphin game closely. I hadn't seen Tyreek Hill sort of look like he was on all fours, look like he was crouching to try to go under the legs of an offensive lineman, but just crouching like, you can't see me. And when I start running, the offensive linemen are going to block which way I'm going, right or left, which I get that. But I don't know that he did it at all or very often when he wasn't the main part of the play.
And the message there is that the Dolphins just did not run almost any tendency breakers. Yeah. And when you are just showing your tendencies and the defense knows them and is ready for them, you score 14 points.
When you've got linebackers running to where the ball is going to be before the handoff even happens, the 6-yard loss with Ahmed, at the snap, Willie Gay is immediately sprinting through the hole. You know, early in the game when Mostert had a 0-yard gain, Leo Chanel was already turning to his left at the snap to take on the wide receiver to toss Berrios to go and make the tackle. Like, those things were happening at the snap. That is incredibly prepared, a smart defense, and also an offense that maybe didn't break tendencies or have some unscouted looks and things like that that's talked about. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the hour next. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. We'll talk with Matt Tate coming up on the other side of the break. Todd Lebo joins us in the noon hour, and then Braden Gall, some college football coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. ESPN has their different division races, and while it's not really a race in the AFC West, they talked about each team that's leading the division right now, and then some NFL personnel, executives, things like that, weighed in on sort of a scout on what they're seeing. And the one personnel in director or front office, whatever, in the AFC about the Chiefs said they look like they're still figuring things out, and Mahomes is pressed a little. I always trust them to get right over the course of the season, but there feels like more uncertainty there offensively than in years past. Rashee Rice will have to step up and be that guy. He just has to. That was the one. Every team had like a quote from an NFL personnel evaluator, a front office executive, et cetera, about what they're seeing from the Chiefs. And I thought that was interesting.
Did I write that?
Yeah.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, good. Hey, good job,
right, exactly.
Front office member.
Yeah, but I trust them to get it right over the course of the season because they always do.
Yep.
This kind of feels different, though. To not feel different, number 4 needs to, step up and be someone they can rely on and go to more often, and maybe go out of their way to try to go to him more often.
Mahomes said it post game. I don't think we played that clip yesterday. It was somewhere baked into a lot of other stuff. But the most interesting little tidbit of it was Mahomes saying, like, yeah, we got to get the ball. I think he used the word downfield more to Rashee Rice, and he's right. They do. That needs to be like maybe the number one priority of the bye week reevaluation process.
Yeah, it's just really surprising that he played the most snaps out of any wide receiver Rashee Rice did, and he got 2 targets. I mean, it's by the way, and I do want to talk about wide receiver snap counts, which sounds mundane.
No, it's not, folks.
But there's definitely something there.
There's
and
a lot.
Trend. But as a little bit of a preview, in that, I mean, Rashee Rice has led the Chiefs in wide receiver snap counts 2 weeks in a row now.
Yep.
He hadn't led the Chiefs in wide receiver snap counts the first 7 games.
It's a really good development. It would just be a better development if he had more targets in the second half than I did.
Yeah. He had the same amount of fantasy points you and I did. Not even on my fantasy team. I'm just saying, just in general. That's what he had.
Rashee Rice and Jerick McKinnon scored touchdowns and then didn't get targeted in the second half.
Yeah.
Is that bad?
Mm-hmm. It's fine.
Not ideal.
They won the game.
Concerning.
They're holding things back.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. Let's bring in Matt Tate to the conversation, presented by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence, serving great craft beer and delicious food to the Lawrence community since 2006. He is with R1S1Sports.com. Matt, welcome into the show. It is, 2007 or 2008 again? KU's winning 7-8 games, and the number one team in the land is playing basketball.
Yeah, right. I never thought about how much younger I am. That works out great. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go do things I can't do anymore.
Mid-20s, and I got my whole life ahead of me. No idea what's gonna happen. It's crazy though. It's sort of indicative of the struggles and the valleys and lack of peaks for college football for the Kansas football side throughout the years to be in this position to where they've won 7 games this year, the most wins since that 2008 football season, and coming off the national championship game, and they're sitting there playing the way that they are. They take care of business, Matt. The last 2 weeks on the football side, they beat OU, they go to Iowa State and win the game. They've got 7 wins. I'm not saying this season is sort of improbable or unexpected because they won 6 a year ago, but how maybe unexpected to a degree is it to have 7 already with 3 games to play?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think there were a lot of people, myself included, that were bracing, and to be honest, Coach Leipold included, that were bracing for what this year could be. The expectation of the fans, of course, was when you win 6 games, that means the next year you got to win more than that. That's how it works, and quite honestly, that's not how it works always, and it's hard to do, and especially when you're still kind of in the middle or at the beginning stages of rebuilding. So I think there are a lot of people bracing for, hey, this could be a better football team, but they might only win 4 or 5 games still. The schedule's hard, the conference is hard, all that stuff. So yeah, to see them just be so damn impressive, to put it frank. I mean, this is a really good football team. I don't think this is fluky. I don't really think last year was fluky, but they had more flaws, and that was sort of exposed after that 5-0 start, kind of limping to the finish the way they did. But this is a team that grew a lot from last year. They have a lot of experience, and not just experience from the season ago, but experience from guys that used to play as freshmen, sophomores that are now, seniors and veterans, and guys who have put in a lot of time and work and passion into this place and into this project, and they're paying off, man. I mean, this is a football team that obviously can play with anybody. They believe that. They're not intimidated. They're not overwhelmed. They don't think that it's weird that they're good. They think they belong, and I think so much of success in sports is that very thing, just the belief in yourself. And it obviously takes more than that to win and to win at a high level, but I think you have to have that to be able to have seasons like this, and these guys have that in spades. I mean, we used to kind of think maybe it was just a Jalen Daniels thing, right? I mean, he's got all that California swagger, and he's the quarterback, and he's the face of the program, and there's a lot that they drew on from his personality and demeanor and all that stuff. But we've seen this year, obviously, with him out, that's a trait that they all share, man. And some of them are loud about it, some of them are quiet about it, but they all believe that they belong, and they believe that they can compete with anybody, and they're obviously showing that. So it's been really cool to watch, not just this year, but the last 2 years, and you start to sort of wonder if now the expectations that are going to come from here, we just talked a minute ago about how just because you win 6 one year doesn't mean you win 7 or 8 the next. Well, I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think what they're doing this year is setting expectations for years to come, and I think the coaches and the players are going to be willing to face those and stare those down and go attack those too. So it's truly remarkable. It's a heck of a story, and it's been a lot of fun to watch.
You know, the part of, building a program and having it to where you feel like there's some consistency, it's not just a one-year run where, you got to 6 wins, you got to bowl eligibility, and sort of some struggles that took place through the latter half of the season last year. They go into the bye week after the loss to Oklahoma State and after losing 2 of 3, getting beat pretty good to Texas, and there's some circumstances surrounding that, playing the way they did against UCF, and then, at Oklahoma State, which, by the way, doesn't look as bad of a loss as it did like at the time with K-State and KU losing some of those games. It's like, oh, Oklahoma State has lost some interesting games earlier this year. What's the deal? They go into the bye week, and they come out, and you got Oklahoma at Iowa State, and then obviously coming up with Tech and Kansas State, and then at Cincinnati. The ability for this team to sort of right the ship after the bye week of beating Oklahoma at home, and there were some great plays that were made down the stretch, some struggles at times and things like that, but some great plays that were made down the stretch. And then not having a letdown. I think that's a big part of it. Is Lance Leipold talked last week, Matt, about they hadn't handled success well in his time there, that coming off a win, they hadn't done well after big wins. And they go to Ames, and they control that game. The game didn't feel like it was as close as the final score was, 28-21. Right. There wasn't a doubt from the first possession. I'm like, okay, he was winning this one. I didn't have a doubt that they were going to end up winning that one. What do you think that says about the program where it's at right now in year 3 for Lance Leipold? Not only just the 7 wins, but the struggles going into the bye week, losing 2 of 3, and then bouncing back with a big win against Oklahoma. Not having a letdown, and then this weekend, Matt, will be interesting to not have a look ahead for Kansas State.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, I think it comes back to just the character of these guys. Obviously, the coaches reset the culture and establish some standards and just sort of hey, this is how we do things around here. And they did that right away. And I think it's important because it's one thing to do that or to try to do that. It's another for guys to actually commit to it and buy into it. And, for the most part, it was almost 100% commitment from the roster. And that was really, really early in the process. And so when you get that early, and look, like a lot of those guys, the Les Miles time was not great. They knew what the program was before that. At that point, it's blind faith. What do you have to lose? You might as well commit to this guy who's telling you this is how it's going to go. And, oh, by the way, he's won 6 national championships at the D3 level and won everywhere he's been and built programs everywhere he's been. I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if everybody wasn't willing to buy in because that is hard to do. But at the same time, it was really like their only option. I mean, they might as well at that point because what else are you going to do? I mean, there's nothing else. You can't go any lower is sort of where they were at. And so I think the fact that they did that, though, and did it, with a real commitment and sort of universal commitment, top to bottom on that roster, I think that really established the most important sort of framework for what was to come, because then I think immediately those guys changed. I mean, the results didn't change. They were still 2-10 in year 1. There were still some games that were ugly. It wasn't results-based change. It was all inside. It was all internal. It was all in the locker room. It was all in their heads. But really early on, I think they found out how tough they were and mentally tough they were, and I think that has just grown game to game, year to year, spring to spring. And so, yeah, going into last week when Lance talked about that and when that's a valid question to wonder if they're going to respond or if they're going to have that letdown, because I've been around these guys so much and I know some of these guys pretty well, it was no doubt in my mind they were going to win that game in Ames. I mean, the line was not necessarily convincing in that manner, and there was a lot of talk about how good Iowa State was and how tough that place is to play on a Saturday night. under the lights with a great fan base, and all those things are true. But even with those being true, I still never doubted that Kansas was going to go up there and win that game, and that was largely because I think these guys are so mentally tough. I don't think you have to question anymore whether, they can handle success. I think they've had enough of it now that they've proven they can handle it, and they've proven they want more, and they've proven they know what that means. And so I think that was a great example of that. You said it perfectly. I mean, they went out there, they took care of business, a 3-and-out to start the game. They go score, they take a 7-0 lead, and then they get the pick six, and it's 14-0. And look, Iowa State made a run, and Iowa State has their own mental toughness and resolve and all that stuff, and so they fought and they made it a game, but it was really never a game. I mean, like, Kansas did control that thing the entire time, and especially when you look at that start. And to me, that's all about mental toughness. That's all about a team that just says, yeah, no, we're different. We're okay. You don't have to worry about us. We got this, coach. And, man, when you combine that with the culture and the standard and everything that Leipold has brought to this program, man, there's no wonder that special things are happening. And it's easy to look ahead and think, wow, there could be more special things on the horizon too. This really, truly could just be the beginning. And it's going to take continued commitment. There's going to be a new, roster turnover this year, next year, the year after. I mean, those guys they're bringing in are going to have to follow in those footsteps and commit the same way. But there's no reason to think they won't. That's what culture is, and especially when you're recruiting the culture that's a winning culture, you can tap into a pool of players that want to be here because they know you win. They want to be here because they've seen what guys did in their position before them, and that just becomes sort of second nature and a given that that's going to happen. So I really do get the feeling that not only is this a good football team and they are legitimate, deserve to be ranked and worthy of the praise and talk that they get, but I really do get the feeling that this is just the beginning. And if that's the case, man, between what Bill Self's doing with the basketball program and then, of course, what football could become, especially when you look at the stadium renovation and all that stuff that's on the horizon, I mean, Lawrence, Kansas is going to be hopping way more than it ever has been if all that continues to move in the direction it's moving.
Matt Tate is our guest, R1S1Sports.com. He is presented by 23rd Street Brewery. One of the fascinating things is that, they start the basketball season as the number one team in the land last night, and we start off the conversation talking about football, which doesn't happen very often. It hasn't happened in a while. But they do go out there, and they get the win over North Carolina Central and take care of business. And, a big night for KU and a great debut for Hunter Dickinson. 34 assists on 39 field goals. Is that a precursor of what this team can look like in sharing the basketball? Or, basketball is such a make-or-miss game that you're going to have a lot of assists when guys make a lot of shots.
Yeah, right. That's a big part of it. It was interesting, too, though. I wrote about that today, or I guess late last night. But Hunter Dickinson had an interesting take on that, and he said, the reason they made so many shots was because of the unselfish nature of the team. I mean, the passes were there to put guys in good positions to take easy shots, and then when you take easy shots or open shots, if you're playing at a place like Kansas, you should make them. And so he wasn't like oohing and ahhing about how great they were. He was just saying, that's it. That's a byproduct of what we do. When we make good passes and we play unselfish basketball and we set each other up, we should shoot a high percentage because they should be good shots and we're good players. So, pretty ho-hum. It obviously gets harder than that, and the opponent has a lot to do with it a lot of the time. So, no disrespect to North Carolina Central, but as their coach shared after the game, that was a team with 10 players on the roster that were playing Division I basketball for the first time. So take it with a grain of salt for sure. And the other thing I wrote when looking at those assist numbers, I thought Self made a very interesting point, which was sometimes the assist numbers like that can be a little bit misleading because, it's great. You want to have 34 assists on 39 made field goals. That's a wonderful stat. But it also means you didn't drive the ball very much. And so leave it to Bill Self to take that and go, well, this is what it wasn't, and that's why he's a Hall of Famer and as good as anyone at what he does. But he's right, he pointed to the first play of the second or the first possession of the second half for Kansas, and Kevin McCullough drove to the rim and finished. And that's a high percentage play. That's a play they want. They talk all the time about paint touches and attacking the rim and getting downhill, and that's good basketball. But there was no assist on that play, So does that mean the assist is the gold standard and it's the greatest thing ever, or does that mean if you've got a guy that can get his shoulders past people and get into the lane and get a layup, that's what you want there too? I mean, to me that's the best thing about it. I mean, it's the versatility that this team has. They do have that ability to be great passers. I mean, Hunter Dickinson is lauded for his passing ability and his vision. DeJuan Harris, who had 10 of those assists last night, flat out said at media day, Hunter's the kind of guy that could lead our team in assists. And so when you have a point guard who's as good as anyone at passing the ball and setting others up, and then you have a big man who's preseason All-American, preseason Player of the Year, going to score a ton, but also loves to pass the ball, then those other three guys that play with him, their jobs become so much easier. They can pass the ball to either one of those guys and be effective and create positive things for the program. They can score off of those two guys. I mean, it just makes them so much harder to guard and to game plan for and to stop. And of course, when KJ Adams, another guy, right? Like when KJ Adams was at his best last year, sort of during his kind of mini breakout, one of the things he was doing best was passing out of that high post area. So even KJ, who's probably their fifth best passer in the starting lineup, he's a really good passer for his position and for his size and all of those things. So, it remains to be seen if that's going to be their calling card, if this is one of Bill's elite passing teams. But it certainly looks like the pieces are in place for that to be the case. And, again, like you mentioned a minute ago, passing the ball is one thing, but it's only as good as the shot goes in, and so they're going to have to continue to find ways to score and be shot makers to make that come to fruition, but there's no reason to think they can't. I mean, it's a weird team in that they're not very deep, and we know the scholarship limitations and all that stuff. But, man, the players they're rocking with are really talented and I think more important than anything, really versatile. So they can play a bunch of different styles, and they can play a bunch of different lineup combinations and really not miss a beat very often when they choose to do either one.
Yeah, and you get, you mentioned the 10 assists from Juan, and then, 5 assists from Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. So you got, junior and a couple seniors. Oh, and a freshman in Jackson that also has 5 assists and 1 turnover.
Right,
so
right.
You throw him in there as well. It's like not just the guys that have been around and played basketball and sort of have that Division I understanding and how guys move and angles. And no, it's a guy playing his first ever, college basketball game that also ends up with 5 assists and 1 turnover. The debut for Hunter Dickinson probably couldn't have gone better for him. 21 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, a couple of blocks. He was 8 of 9 from the floor and 2 of 2 at the free throw line. So when Hunter Dickinson threw the ball towards the rim, he made 10 of the 11 times that he attempted that in his debut. What was that debut like? As I don't know that we need to compare it to like other debuts, but as much anticipated as that was, it certainly fit the bill, and he answered the bell, if you want to call it that, for his first time in a Jayhawk uniform.
Yeah, it was maybe as good of a debut as we've seen. I mean, really, especially because he did it in the first couple of minutes, right? Like he didn't wait to kind of get into the game first. I mean, he decided that this was his game and he was going to take it over, and it all came within what they want to do. And there was no selfishness involved with that. It was just he made the right plays and made shots. And I think I didn't really remember this, but I think Self pointed out after the game that the one shot he missed, he got his own rebound too. So
wow, I didn't realize that either.
That's sort of that effective field goal percentage thing, right? So
yeah.
that's sort of like erasing the miss. It doesn't hurt you at all. So yeah, almost perfect. And we could go through the debuts. I don't remember a ton that live up to that. I remember Josh Selby's debut after sitting out against USC, and he was a 5-star, number 1 ranked player in the country, and anticipation for him huge. And then he had a big game against USC, and maybe even hit the game winner. I can't remember if that's exactly right or not, but either way, it was memorable because he showed up, he answered. But I would take what Dickinson did last night over that 10 times out of 10, largely because Selby was still a freshman, and that was a 5 stars. They come with this label. They come with this projection and excitement and anticipation and all that stuff, right? But Hunter Dickinson was a known commodity. He was a monster of a basketball player at Michigan, and he came to Kansas, and it seemed from the outside, literally everyone who's talked about it since he decided to come to KU has said, boy, what a fit. What a perfect player to have in the Bill Self system. He's going to be unbelievable. The preseason honors have proven that or illustrated that. Guys like you talking on the radio have said it. I've written it. Other guys all over the country have talked about that. And then for him to come out and show, like, yeah, that's right. You guys are all right. I'm going to be pretty good here. It's remarkable. And again, he did it in limited minutes, and he did it within the flow of everything they want to do. It's not like the 3-pointers he took were, selfish shots or I've got to go get mine type of moments. They were ball reversals, and he knocked down a shot. And I was in Puerto Rico. I saw him play down there. I was pretty underwhelmed, to be honest. But again, that was exhibition games in the summer. He's had more time since then, a couple of months really, and he's clearly ready for Kansas basketball. And maybe there's something tied to that. Maybe the Puerto Rico games didn't matter. Maybe the Fort Hays game the other night didn't matter, right? Maybe it was just things had to count for him to really lock in. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, that's okay. I mean, I'm sure people would kill him for that if that is the case, but I think that's okay. I think there's some human nature that's a part of that. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to lock in every game for the next 40 games like that, then yeah, Kansas is going to be worthy of the number 1 ranking, and they're going to be really tough to beat because he gets everything he gets so easily. And, I've said this throughout the offseason, like, I thought there were going to be a lot of games where he put up big numbers and you didn't realize it, like at the end of the game, just because he's 7'2", and because of the position he plays and the role he plays within that offense. Yeah, you may not think he played that well, but he'll have 25 and 14 or something like that, and it's you'd kind of leave yourself scratching your head going, I didn't think he was that good, but those are good numbers. But after what I saw last night, I think there may not be any head scratching. I think there may be, holy crap, he had good numbers, and yeah, I saw him, and I saw all of it, and he's really good. So it was cool to watch, though. The personality came out. He's got a lot of that. And I think every team needs that. You usually get that from the Christian Brown types, right? The guards, the wings. There's a lot more of those guys out there than there are 7'2" guys that bring that kind of energy. But we've always heard that that's Hunter Dickinson, and it's proven to be true. And he certainly showed it last night in what was a pretty memorable debut. And they're off and running. And they needed that, man. They weren't good in their exhibition games. They weren't good at all. But they're obviously okay.
Yeah, the offensive rating for Hunter Dickinson last night was a 211. His highest before last night was as a freshman, his 3rd or 4th game of his career. He had a 206. But outside of that, his next highest offensive rating of his entire career was a 157. And then he had a 211 last night. So there you go.
It's good to be at Kansas.
Yeah,
it's good to be at Kansas. Yeah. You're surrounded by a lot of talent, a lot of good players, and one hell of a coach who is going to make sure he maximizes everything you can bring to the table. They're obviously off and running with that, but it's going to get harder. That was
for sure.
That was 10 guys playing D1 basketball for the first time. So They fought, they competed, but he's going to see a lot tougher challenges than that starting next week. In Chicago when they go play the Champions Classic against Kentucky. But he's a mismatch. He's a problem, and it's going to be fun to watch how how other people try to solve the problem, because there's no real easy answer. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if he's anywhere near this on a consistent basis, and it's it's unfair to say, well, he should be playing like this. If he's near this, then not only will you be talking about one of the better players, but you'll be having the words Wooden and Naismith being talked about throughout the season. If that's the case, still very early, obviously, but you talk about the fit and what he can do and the skill that's there. We'll see. We'll see as it goes along, but a week from tonight certainly will tell us a lot as well. It is Matt Tate. He is from R1S1Sports.com and presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, appreciate the time as always, sir. Enjoy the basketball game Friday, football game on Saturday, and then in Chicago a week from tonight against Kentucky. We'll talk soon. Appreciate it as always, Matt.
Sounds great, man. Thanks for having me. Good to talk to you. And, yeah, it got busy in a hurry, but it's always a great time of year. So enjoy it yourself, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks, Jim. Absolutely.
There's Matt Tate, no doubt. It got busy in a hurry. You get a game on Saturday in Ames, a game last night in Lawrence, a game Friday in Allen Fieldhouse, and a game Saturday against Tech, and then on Chicago for the Champions Classic against Kentucky coming up a week from tonight. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Remind you, he's presented by 23rd Street Brewery, serving great craft beer and delicious food to the Lawrence community since 2006. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. More Zone next. All right, we'll talk with Todd Lebo coming up at noon. Get a little Fact or Fiction an hour from now with Todd Lebo. Thank you to Matt Tate. Talking some college basketball, college football with KU in action on Friday. K-State, Mizzou in action on Friday as well. All three teams opening up college basketball yesterday with the rest of America. And some games today as well, but some fun ones coming up this weekend, certainly in football as well. And we'll continue to talk about that as the weeks progress. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll also talk with Braden Gall coming up at about 1:20 or so. Get his thoughts on some college football, our college football insider from ESPN Radio and Athlon Sports. We will talk with Braden Gall coming up then. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810, the text line to be a part of the show. Text came in earlier, said, I'm just sort of paraphrasing that Tua is the Dante Culpepper of this generation.
Wow.
I thought that was interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
I like Dante Culpepper.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's just tainted by the era, though. Interesting.
Yes. 913-912-4810. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Text says Jalen Daniels medical red shirt. I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe a topic of conversation, fact or fiction again this week. I asked you guys about it last week, and I just have that one up for a little re-ask.
We were talking about the Chiefs' defense and what Marcus Spears had said about the identity of the Chiefs now, a team with a great defense and a great quarterback. Which, by the way, if you gave coaches and GMs a chance to choose, like, hey, you can have a great defense and a great quarterback, would you take it? I think across the board it'd be 32 for 32 saying, yes, absolutely, I would take it. Great defense and a great quarterback. But so we played the clip from Marcus Spears, and this text comes in, and I think it's great. It says, on the same segment with Marcus Spears, Ryan Clark broke down how spaghetti was ready for the Dolphins. And I love that autocorrect was Spagnuolo to spaghetti. And that's the main reason why I read that text, is because it's pretty badass that spaghetti was ready for the Dolphins. That early in the morning, typically, at least local time, to have that, yes, was definitely ready for the Dolphins.
Especially on that last play, Tua had mom spaghetti all over the place.
That's exactly right. No wonder the ball was slipping out of the hands. I mean, it's just a marinara sauce everywhere.
If Brian Cook was running at me at full speed, I would also have mom spaghetti all over myself.
Yes. I
would not be calm nor ready.
Yes. 913-912-4810.
MVS, I guess, is the one who's dropped bombs.
Yeah. Mahomes typically is calm and ready.
I would not be.
Some of the wide receivers keep on forgetting what they wrote down.
Ooh, that's pretty good. I like that one.
The whole
That's
crowd
good.
goes so
That's
loud.
Andy Reid's question. He just keeps going up to Sky Moore. You forgot what you wrote down.
He goes to throw the ball, but
no one's open. Wow.
No one comes out of their back. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes Patty. Let's hear from Ryan Clark.
Oh, okay. What do you have to say about spaghetti?
On that same segment, talking about how impressive the Chiefs' defense was and what they did against Miami to limit the Dolphins in not only the yards but the points. Here's Ryan Clark, that same segment with Marcus Spears.
You have to give credit to Steve Spagnuolo and what this defense has done the entire season. But when you look at the way they were able to move in and out of two high shell defenses the entire day, that starts because you can stop the run with 7 up front or with 7 in the box. And now you can be so multiple from the same exact look. They were able to bring defenders off of the outside with DBs rushing. You were able to get pressure in the middle of the pocket to make Tua Tagovailoa hold the football. And you kept the lid on the defense by having both Brian Cook and Justin Reed and also Edwards deep when you needed to have them in the backfield. I thought it was a masterful game called by Steve Spagnuolo, but the execution by this defense was top-notch. And the last and most important thing, they were physical. You cannot turn this into a dance contest when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. It has to be a fist fight, and that's what they were able to do.
They did a lot against the Dolphins. There's so much to take away from that. And part of the encouraging aspect of that is when they get to the postseason, the level they can play at when they are that locked in to what they believe the offense is going to do. There wasn't a 2-week build-up to that. It was a week-long build-up, and they had to deal with, the whole acclimation period. I'm worried about when the Chiefs arrived in Germany, if they're going to have it. I think the problem is the Chiefs' first half, they were clearly ready to go, but then they got tired.
Jet lag hit at halftime. That happens sometimes,
right? They were still on they're sometimes when you get up early in the morning and you don't have a whole lot of sleep, you get that early energy boost.
Yep.
You're like, all right, let's go.
Yep.
And then you just crash at some point. Obviously, the second half of the Chiefs.
They were so jet lagged, they thought it was the AFC Championship game against the Bengals. That's how jet lagged they were.
Tex says, Russ is Papa Doc. Yes, Russell Wilson. He went to Cranbrook. That's a private school. And Russ's parents have a real good marriage.
That's very good.
That's so true.
Everything Ryan Clark said there also is just, it's all dead on, and it's all hilarious because of the football team this is. Just because of, tell yourself in 2018 that this was coming, or 2019, or 2020, or 2021, or I'd say 2022. The idea of investing in that defense to make a game like Sunday possible, we saw that in the 2022 draft, NFL draft. We knew that they were trying to rebuild with youth in a way that was going to have positive repercussions for years to come. But they've been just flat excellent at every turn from a coaching, an execution, a roster building perspective. Once again, doing it without Nick Bolton in this game. It's not like they've had tremendous injury luck. And I don't want to spoil fact or fiction. But Chris Jones hasn't had a sack in these last 2 games.
True.
While remaining a real important part of the defense we can talk about.
3 games in a row with no sack for Chris
Is it 3
Jones.
now, I guess?
3
okay, wow.
Straight.
And he's been
completely disappeared. I don't even know, he's doing nothing for this defense whatsoever. He's not drawing double teams. He's not making the offense worry about him everywhere he goes. He's not creating mismatches for other guys on the field. Why is he even out there? Put Dickerson in the game, damn it.
You've obviously also then seen the tweets. But with that in mind, Chris Jones has demanded attention, but when he is defensive player of the year, he's demanding attention and still somehow winning at a pretty good clip. Sometimes it's through the double teams, sometimes it's hunting on the edges, and this is not actually me saying that Chris Jones has not been excellent. He has. Spoiler alert. But the defense has been able, it's not about Chris Jones. The defense has been able to pay off on the attention paid to Chris Jones without Chris Jones also having to do it himself. Without Chris Jones having to go to the store and carry in the groceries and cook the ingredients and plate the food. Now it's all right, Chris, can you go to the store, get the ingredients, bring them inside, then lay them out here for us? And then Brian Cook and Trent McDuffie and Mike Edwards will take it from there.
And then somebody else will clean up the dishes after it's over.
Yes, and then I don't know why, but I just think George Karlaftis is the guy cleaning the dishes. I don't know where the metaphor goes. It just feels right.
You know what? That's right.
It's just what it feels like it would be. He's got great energy, great motor, good attitude, doesn't mind doing the dirty work. Mike Dana is definitely.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I said Karlaftis is the dishes and Dana sweeping the floor and mopping and making sure it looks spick and span after it's over, just completely shutting down the night after it's over.
It is a luxury for Chris Jones to be able to merely be excellent in the attention that he demands and being able to hold his ground there, and then have other guys be able to pay off on the group effort that this defense actually is. It really is spectacular, and I hope we get to spend the rest of the season talking about it in terms of this glowing, because it is rare, and it's man, you've been watching the NFL the last few years. This year's been a little bit different. But man, it is difficult to build a dominant defensive unit. Offenses are really good, and the Chiefs do not care.
Is this where, we see offenses down in the league, that this might be a year to where it's hey, if you've got a better defense than offense, and your offense is still, top 5, 6, 7, depending on the advanced metrics. I think they're number 12 in scoring offense right now. Is this a year to where offense is down all over the league? You don't want to have a crappy defense this year because your offense is probably down as well. That you've got one of the best defenses in the league that's holding even some of the best offenses in a year that some offense is down to limited points. That if there was a year to have the Chiefs offense sort of have a slower start and the defense be a bunch of Goliaths out there just dominating some what seems like just smaller people.
Yeah,
it's what it looks like on the field at times.
Yeah.
This seems like it might be the year to where defensive-minded team that has a great quarterback and do enough offensively in a year that offense overall is down.
Because it also presents a new way of winning that we haven't really seen actually win championships very often in the modern NFL, at least. And I still think there's a sliding scale there where, like, I'm still not worried about the Browns. I wouldn't want the Chiefs to play that team because I do think that defense is hellacious. But I think the Chiefs beat the Browns 10-6 in a divisional round game if that's where it ends up being, right? Like, I actually might predict that score.
Like, Pittsburgh's in the playoffs right now, and they've got the 29th scoring offense.
Right.
Not worried about the Steelers.
Nice story.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
If you have a defense that is good enough to have every other offense gets turned into a lesser form of itself, and you have, in this case, Patrick Mahomes, maybe there's not going to be a fully complete team. It's funny, going back to that same division, the Bengals are getting there. The Ravens have looked excellent. But I don't know what happens if they play this Chiefs defense, and I do know what happens, historically speaking, when Patrick Mahomes plays in the playoffs. Things go well for the Chiefs offense, even when it looks like they might not for a little bit. So I am finding more optimism bubbling up here, and maybe just getting further away from the Broncos game, as infuriating as it is. Maybe when that gets to the point of it being the Colts loss that just sort of is back there, but it's an aberration, it's an outlier, it was a bad dream. If the Chiefs keep winning football games this way, and certainly if they beat the Eagles off the bye next Monday night, we're full speed ahead again. Like, you got to make sure Grand's cleared out, and I got to make sure I find a better parking spot this year.
Get there early to where you can cross the street.
Whenever I will
just
sleep
park
there
on the west side of Grand. That would be smarter.
I will work on it. I will take notes. Should we have the luxury of planning for that?
Here's the thing: you're dumb and got there a little bit earlier than me.
I got earlier than you're so right. I got there earlier than you did.
You were parked while I was still on the highway, and I got the call like, "Hey, you need to park on the west side of Grand." Cool. Let me go ahead and run a little detour real quick. Let me go to the west side park. I'm here. Josh, where are you at? Walking. I'll be there in an hour and a half. Yes,
Yep.
I got here 20 minutes before you did, and I'll be there at 11:15.
You know, we're all learning lessons from the last championship season.
That's right.
And I'm just trying to be better every day. And it's nice being able to park in the parking lot here, because I know how to get into the door from our parking lot here.
Works. Yeah, but you got the scenic route. You got to see the entire parade route. So when you came on the air with us, you were fully versed on what was ahead of us on that parade route. Turns out, Union Station.
Yeah, it's who knew, but
Shocker.
I needed to be able to confirm with my own eyes. Sources said, but then I was able to confirm that they were going to end the parade route down at Union Station.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Where do the improvements come on offense? I think some of the obvious parts are the wide receivers, but a trend developing. We'll certainly talk about that. Todd Lebo joins us at noon. A little Fact or Fiction. Braden Gall, some college football coming up about 1:20 or so. More Zone next. All right, welcome back here in the zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Looking at the wide receiver snap counts for this team, and we can get into more and more of this as the weeks go on. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice are the 4 wide receivers that have received the most snap counts this year. And typically game in and game out are going to be your top 4 on snap counts out of the 6/7 guys who were active on game day. Throughout the course of the season, through the 9 games, Marquez Valdez-Scantling has led the wide receiver group in snaps played in a game 4 times of the 9. 3 for Sky Moore and 2 for Rashee Rice. Now, what's interesting is 3 of the first 4 games, Sky Moore led the team in snap counts, which was a surprise for me, that going back and looking and thinking back to that time of Sky Moore, 3 of the first 4 weeks, the highest percentage of snap counts on this team, of snaps for the wide receivers on this team, was really contrasting to the actual production that was there. It feels a little Justin Watson MVS a year ago, where they're getting a lot of snaps, but they're not getting many targets. What's the point? But that has slowly it fluctuated throughout the year for Sky Moore until the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So that Broncos game, or I should say Chargers game, Sky Moore played 60% of the snaps. MVS led all receivers at 69%, and Rashee Rice at 59%. So it was 69, 60, 59. The last 2 weeks, Sky Moore has gone from 60% against the Chargers, 54% against the Broncos, and 25% against the Dolphins. Where Rashee Rice, since week 5 against the Vikings when he played 30% of the snaps, his percentage has gone from 30 to 49 to 59 to 61 to 68 for Rashee Rice. You're seeing that slow trend of Rice passing Sky Moore, and the last 2 weeks just simply blowing by him in snap counts. And now Rashee Rice is playing some of the juju with MVS and Justin Watson out there, and Sky Moore is losing snap counts and cut in half from week 8 against the Broncos to Germany against the Dolphins.
I think slicing him in half is a bit strong. Just, he hasn't been that bad. I don't think you should have to, get Darth Mauled or anything.
He's already a smaller individual. You cut him in half. So that is not a great target spot for Mahomes.
He's got legs that look like running back legs. I mean,
catch radius would be terrible.
Maybe cut him in half and then put Jerick McKinnon's torso on his. I don't know.
Sky Moore, Eddie Goodell.
It's fascinating because I think that the Chiefs have pretty clearly shown us that and maybe there'll be some rebound. I'm guessing that Sunday will be the outlier where
nobody's going to play any snaps on Sunday.
I think last Sunday was going to ultimately be viewed as the outlier because I bet Sky Moore doesn't play less than 15 snaps the rest of the way, and but that might be the range. Maybe it's 15 to 20, 25. It'll be interesting to see as McCole Hardman also gets a little more work. He ended up with 13 snaps against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And then Kadarius Toney last with 7. Obviously, Justin Ross, not on the active roster right now, on the exempt list. But figuring out what it's going to be from 2 all the way down is one thing. The obvious thing at this point simply has to be that one receiver on this team has stood out this year. It's Rashee Rice with a bullet. Justin Watson has done good things. For his salary number, if he was in MVS's role and getting used the way that he is for his paycheck, no complaints about Justin Watson whatsoever. But no one has separated themselves, literally or metaphorically, in the way that Rashee Rice has. The thing that's confusing is I don't know what else it's going to take for him to get the football more.
You and I totally agree on that. And what's also interesting is Sky Moore, those snap counts going on. The targets remain the same.
Interesting.
by the name of
Todd Lebo.
At least that was the handle his loving parents gave him. But he never had much use for it himself. This
Lebo.
he called himself.
Lebo.
Sometimes there's a man. Well, he's the man for his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's
Todd Lebo.
Kansas City.
I hate Lebo.
La 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 la.
It is time for our conversation, our hangout with Todd Lebo on a Tuesday, heading up until 1 o'clock with Todd Lebo. Some factor fishing coming up in the next segment.
Did you say factor fishing?
I think I did.
We're going fishing, baby.
That's fiction. It's
No.
not factor fishing.
Is it?
Are
You
you
know what?
fishing for facts?
Let's go fishing.
You've
Let's
been
do it.
fishing the most recently out of all of us, unless Dylan has a hobby I'm not aware of.
Easily
I
out
went
of the
fishing
two of
in
us.
Canada, so I've been fishing.
I'll do some fishing in November because my little sister likes fishing. I'm
Yeah.
going to Florida, so I'll catch a fish.
I mean, it might have been 20, 25 years ago the last time I actually
You
fished.
got to get a little man out here to the lake or something. Go
What am I going to teach him? I can't teach him to
You don't
fish. I have to
teach him.
feed him.
That's a great point.
You just
I'm only going to feed
get
him a
little
fish.
Zebco and then let him throw a line
He's
out
never
there.
gonna. He's never gonna be able to eat on his own. I'm always gonna have to feed him. I'll feed him for a
You
day.
got to teach him to fish.
I'm not gonna be able to teach him. I can't teach him to something I don't know.
But you could learn yourself.
I'm teaching him a jump shot. All right, I know that. That's what.
But that's not going to put food on the table.
No, he's
Oh,
going
he
to be
can put
starving.
They could put lots of food on the table. Okay.
Yeah.
Once he is that 3-and-D guy in the NBA,
Yeah.
that's lots
That's
of.
right around the corner.
That's right.
A lot
Huh?
of travel ball between then and there. That's free.
We're just going to have a bunch of kids, and eventually one of them will make it to the professional leagues, and then we're taken care of.
It's all set for you.
Yes, Hollywood kids paying the bills now. We get free room and board.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. I think it's
Everett's
a sound strategy.
Hope it works
Hooping
out.
in big baller brand sneakers.
That's exactly right. Undefeated. Never lost.
Ever.
Never
for-
caught a fish.
We tried fishing. Didn't work.
Defeated. Never caught one.
Took the bait, not the hook.
The fish are actually undefeated against me. That is
Never get got.
That is true. You did vote today, so that's good.
I got my sticker on.
Is that a new sticker, or is that the sticker you always get in your little
You
area?
know, for a while there in Jackson County, we were just getting to keep the pen.
Yeah, I got a couple of those pins in my car door.
It's still where I vote. It's just fill in the circle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing electronic over there.
Yeah.
It's a
There's
nice
electronic.
sticker.
Then you go take your big sheet of paper and you put it in the machine.
Your Scantron, it's
Yeah.
a number 2 pencil. Make sure you use that.
I am old enough that I didn't do Scantron tests like that.
Really?
But I'm now
old.
in a place where the voting machines are old enough where we still use Scantron.
nice
fill and
little
I had
crossover.
only one thing on the ballot in Lee Summit where I live. Like out here, there's school board and all kinds of signs everywhere. And where I was, it was like, I can't imagine there would be 50 people go through my polling center. But it's at the Longview Rec Center, and that's a good walk for me in the morning.
Yeah, it's nice.
So I walked
Okay.
up there, and I remembered to bring my glasses with me
Good idea.
to read what I was going to vote yes
Yeah.
or no on. And then I walked back. I got a 2.5 mile walk this morning.
Good kid.
Walked up to the
Wow.
polls. And how many people were in line?
Zero.
None. And how many people? Now, people were in the rec center. I assumed that
Well, they're
everyone who went to the rec center
working out
to
or
work
playing.
out voted also.
I would like to
hope.
believe that.
But
We're there anyway.
They're also working on their J.
And normally when we go up there, there's some people, maybe not in line or whatever, but there's someone handing out materials for something. But there's literally only one thing on my ballot. And so there was no one outside. There was nothing. And the nice poll workers in there, there were 4 of them, maybe 6 of them. They were very excited to see me. It was early. I mean, they opened at 6, and I was probably there at 6:15 or 6:20 or something like that. So they couldn't have had too many people up there. But
Did you
I
see
made their
anyone
day, I
there
hope.
before you, or is there a chance you brought that thing open?
I could have been the first one, but I'm assuming that someone up there going to work out voted before me.
I think you were the first one.
I could have been. I
You
should
might have been
asked
the
him,
only one.
How many have you had so far?
The precincts there are already reporting because they've only had 3 votes.
All in.
So
All in.
3 votes, and
Hey,
all
can
of
we get a
them-
recount? Yeah, sure. Hold on. 1, 2,
All of them are
3.
yes.
Here you go.
In fact, 1 abstained, which was odd. Why
So
vote?
weird.
I
What's
walked
the
up
point?
there and refused to vote on the one question.
It's for the sticker. You do it for the sticker.
But well, I did tell the guy he was going to give me the sticker, and I'm like, can you tear it off so I have the paper? Because this is not my clothes for the day. I had to go home
Right.
and all that, so I
Yeah.
could have my sticker.
I just thought maybe you keep that shirt with the sticker on it forever and you wear it on voting
Election
day.
Election day.
Every
Yeah, we
election
finally
day
got
he
back
wears
to
that
stickers
shirt.
because we didn't
The
have.
sticker.
It was just that you keep the pen for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They let you keep the stylus.
I got a little stylus thing.
It's not a. I do like the stylus though, but it could have been a learn for me yesterday. I didn't do it, but what I did learn is you mentioned all the school board stuff out here. Is that if you have a voting sign for school board, in some way, shape, or form, you must incorporate an apple.
Yeah,
on that.
Or a little
on that
grade,
sign.
you know, a little A plus.
Little
Somebody's
A+,
got that.
or
I
like
don't know
a pencil, but mainly an apple on the school board stuff in any of the election
Here's
signs
a secret.
that are out there.
Here's inside teacher secret from
Yeah?
my wife, who taught for 29 years.
How to rig the school board election.
No, not that. But
Oh.
they, if you get sometimes if kids would give you a present or something.
Yeah.
And if it's something at Christmas time or the end of the year, they give you something had an apple on it. They called that crapple stuff. Wow. Because nobody wanted something with an apple to remind them.
Yeah, they probably get tired of the apple stuff, right? Because it's sort of the go-to, right? I mean,
imagine how hard this time of year is for doctors.
Crapple.
You show up and you see an apple on a sign or something.
Yeah, keep them away.
No,
I'm trying to. I need work.
Get that out of here.
Come on.
It's why all doctors have androids.
I really, honestly, the only reason I knew it was election days because all the signs out here. But I was like,
was really
but
dumb.
we got our little thing in the mail.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up because I'm a conscientious, voter. I looked up and I just had the one question.
And you still went. That's great. I'm
It
gonna
was
check
mostly
my
for
list.
the exercise.
That's true. Yeah, the walk in. That's true. You gave you a little
Got to walk.
destination.
Yeah. It did.
Without the exercise, would you have been a conscientious objector?
No, I still would have voted. Probably.
Okay.
I can't remember the last
Would
time
have
I didn't
driven there?
vote. I vote. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we get the right to do it.
That's right.
So I'll go do it, even if it's some just weird one thing or.
This one's right on the line for me today. I'm batting pretty close to 1,000, and I'm gonna find. If I got one question, I might skip it. I'm not sure.
But you may have more. Where
I
you
might.
live.
I know. So I was like, I got to get the little sample ballot and stuff. I think I got a couple on mine.
Yeah,
Look
you
you up
got
right now. Look
Can I
up
bring in
the
my
break.
sticker tomorrow and still get credit for it? If I'm going to vote after work
Oh,
instead of
for sure.
before? Okay.
I'll count it.
We'll
Yeah.
look this up.
I'll put it on my
during the
cup
break.
or something.
You probably
I'll
have
show
some
you where to look up
HOA
your
stuff
ballot.
that you'll vote for there.
Yeah, definitely. We're a big HOA neighborhood for sure.
Which, by the way, did you see the Stallions, the Colin Stallions, Chris Stallions? I always forget the guy's first name.
Connor Stallions.
Connor Stallions. I just remember the Stallions name. But
We're talking about the guy who allegedly has been stealing signs all across the globe.
Michigan.
For Michigan.
The guy who was just a fan of other teams that they're playing, just wants to
goes
be
to
on the
wherever.
sideline. Guys like Todd and his friends just going
hanging
to
out,
different
going to
college
games.
football trips that Michigan happens to be on the schedule for.
Getting sideline passes.
The Washington Post wrote about this is a funny little snippet I saw. When he first moved to Michigan, property records indicate he purchased a $485,000 house near the Michigan campus in Ann Arbor in March 2022, shortly before his stint with the Marines ended. Not long after he moved in that spring, dozens of old vacuum cleaners appeared on his front porch. The unsightly stash peeved neighbors and sparked the interest of the homeowners association, which is what made me think what we were talking about, which then sued Stallions for allegedly operating an appliance refurbishing business out of his home in violation of the HOA bylaws. Wow. Stallions fought back and represented himself in Washtenaw County Trial Court. In a letter written in response to a summons in October 2022, he wrote, quote, I suspect that whoever has chosen to sue me either one, doesn't like the fact that I'm a veteran, or two, is a Michigan State fan and knows I'm a Michigan football coach and wants to draw my attention away from the team. This, end quotes, goes on story. He had one Spartan fan in mind. Quote, someone named Jeff lived down the street and had a son attending Michigan State. He, quotes, he uncomfortably questioned me about Michigan football and what goes on in our building, giving me a bad feeling about him. He definitely seemed like someone who wants to distract me with unnecessary time-consuming things like this. That was his letter to the HOA
what
in response.
did he have the vacuums for, though?
He was, I guess he was actually running
like a little sell.
Who
Buy and
knows?
sell.
I'm not sure.
Get a lot of vacuum cleaners and sell them on eBay or something.
Got to be something with that to help out the
Facebook
Michigan football program,
Marketplace.
because he doesn't want his time distracted away from Michigan football by having to deal with that. He certainly wouldn't be running a small business and refurbishing vacuums. That
He's
would
not
take
actually
time
a
away
coach
from Michigan
either, right?
football. He said he's a coach. I mean, he said like
In
with
court,
the,
he's a coach.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
We should have all figured out a lot sooner that he was a little bit off. I mean, there were so many signs.
Imagine.
I'm just gonna keep throwing these until Lebo eventually laughs at
I
one because
appreciate it.
You got me. That was
I
a
got
good
that
one.
one. I finally
Imagine the
got that one.
guy that's a member of that HOA that hates veterans and Michigan football.
Yeah.
He's screwed. I mean,
What's wrong with people?
I'm not even gonna make a joke about
by the way,
that.
there's a picture
Too easy.
of, so he's got like a front porch, right? Covered front porch with nice little area there, and it's just filled with like 50 vacuums sitting there in the front. Like, of course you're going to get a letter from you bought a $500,000 house in Ann Arbor. I'm assuming it's a nice place to live, and your front porch has like 50 vacuums
well, he had to
sitting
put
there?
him in the garage, except he was out watching football games in other cities.
That's right. They just delivered the vacuums to his front porch. Like, I really want to know, like, why he had, like, was he actually running a business, or like,
very successful.
Was he just a big fan of cleaning things?
Can someone find like a Facebook advertisement or some sort of advertisement
marketplace
anywhere
Of stallions and this
vacuums
vacuum refurbishing business that was taking time away from his job with Michigan football, which is clearly an issue for the Michigan State fans.
Speaking of college football, we were joking. I walked by earlier and said, "What do you want to talk about?" And he said, "Bedlam" for an hour. And I don't really want to talk about Bedlam.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to give. Well, I can, but I'll give you a little stat that came across my Twitter timeline with my friends yesterday. In the last 87 years of Oklahoma football, they have, on consecutive weeks, had a lead in the fourth quarter and lost 2 times. Once was the last 2 weeks, and once was in October of 1990 when I was in college. So I have been to 3 of the 4 games in this 87-year deal where they've lost. It was really good. They lost to Texas in 1990 when R.D. Lasher missed a field goal. They had a lead, a 13-7 lead, missed a field goal as time expired that would have won the game. And then the next week, Dad's weekend, they had a 11-point lead over Iowa State, who they had not lost to since 1965. And they came back and won 33-31 on like 19 consecutive quarterback draws. It ruined Dad's day. And then last week in Lawrence, and then Saturday, which I was not there.
I was going to say Saturday's the only one you
I
went
have
there
not
for.
gone back to Stillwater since 2002 when Oklahoma lost there. I'll stay away when things go bad. But, except I continue to go to Allen Fieldhouse in the hopes of maybe Oklahoma will ever win a basketball game there, but it's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen?
But,
what are you talking about?
So, yeah, of those 4 things that have only happened twice in 87 years, I was at 3 of them. Some really good stuff. Really good.
Yeah, and it's always good to lose the last Bedlam on your way out.
The last Bedlam, the last trip to Lawrence.
No big deal. Yeah, it's not a big deal. There's no bragging rights around here for anybody that you know.
I did send a nice text to Corey and Mick.
I bet you did.
Congratulating him. I did.
Did they respond?
So then Corey responded later that he liked me. I mean, he was nice to me, but he said basically F Oklahoma because they're the ones ruining the league. And that's true. And then Mick, who was at this point drunk in Germany, taking pictures of every single person in the bar he was at that he had found had the game on it, and he sent me all of those twice.
Oh, that's nice.
Because he'd forgotten he did it before, I think. And I said, "Shouldn't you be in bed?" He says, "Yes, it's 3:00 in the morning or whatever." Because the game ended it was probably really only 10 something, because it was 6 hours at that point.
Yeah, because it was still Saturday.
And it was 2:30, so it was probably 11. It's understandable. But this was well after the game, and it was like 3:30. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be on, call here in a little bit. So
yeah, soon you might need to go and answer the bell there, buddy.
That's a rough Bedlam, though.
It happens.
But Oklahoma's won that Bedlam game in that way, I don't know, 40 times probably, with something at the end, something crazy. So it's just kind of poetic that these things are not going their way this year, and they deserve to get some L's on the way out. Because I mean, they're not ruining the league, but they made a mess, and the league's going to survive. But it wouldn't be having to if they hadn't followed Texas. But
well, I mean, it's the weekend it was fun for Kansas fans, and the other 3 fan bases being Mizzou, K-State, and of course Oklahoma with Todd, because Mick isn't here right now, so that didn't count.
He's a Jayhawk, so.
All end up losing. That's right, he is a Jayhawk, so it feels good about that win for KU, especially when he felt bad when Oklahoma State beat KU earlier this year because he's a Jayhawk.
Yeah, it felt really bad.
Yeah, it felt really bad, and like going to Texas and going to Georgia for Mizzou and K-State, coming out of that game, an overtime loss and a loss in which you lose by 9. I know it's different level of competition, but Texas isn't a slouch. Texas is pretty good. They beat Alabama.
They did. They don't have their quarterback right now, so it's not quite right. But
it's odd that I almost feel like Missouri comes out of that game feeling a little bit better. And I know Eli isn't going to take the moral victory, and he said that nobody's going to feel sorry for us. It sucks because of everything we put into this and all that stuff, and to feel like you're so close but yet so far away. Kansas State doesn't feel the so close but so far away. Kansas State leaves that one with feeling like they let one get away.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, they started slowly, and that happens, but they fought
started
back.
real slow last year against Texas at home, and they fought back, and they made that a final possession game.
Yeah. And
they have so many close games. They've lost, is it 7 in a row now? I think every one of them but one's a single score.
Yeah.
Against Texas.
I mean, it's been like this series, like you're talking about. That's exactly right, where it's been 4-point loss, 6-point loss, 3-point loss. And this one going into overtime, 2 opportunities, down 3. It's 3rd and 1. Will Howard gets stopped for, negative yardage, and so they kick the field goal. Misses. So still down 3, get the ball back, make a 45-yarder, go into overtime. Defense, I mean, the defense had played so awesome through the second half, and Malik Murphy
was dead.
Murphy looked like, a high school sophomore, not a college quarterback in the second half. First half, he looked good. Second half, he couldn't complete easy passes to guys who were open, and they weren't able to really get much of a running game going. And so the way Kansas State felt like they just dominated the final 2 quarters of that game, you feel like one got away. And I don't know if Chris Kleiman actually would do it again in the future. I know he said that, no, he'll I'll do it again. I'd make the same decision. I mean, then if the circumstances,
need a better play, probably.
Well, if the circumstances are the exact same, then he'd be wrong that time too.
Yeah,
maybe it would work out, but
it's a lot of things come down to play calls or whatever. I mean, they just dialed,
no doubt.
Like Chiefs 3rd and 1. Listen.
Yeah.
I just still think they should have run the ball instead of try to throw it. But if they threw a different pattern that worked, no one. But there was nothing there for that, and there was nobody there for Will Howard on that play either. And that's the part that's probably as disappointing as anything. It'd be different if you had a chance on the play, but that thing was just toast from the beginning.
I think the psychological part of it is, too, like maybe he wanted to capitalize on that early momentum. You pick up the 21-yard gain on first down. You just held them to a field goal, 21-yard gain. You got first and goal from like the 4, whatever it is, and you're about to punch it in, and the game's going to be over. And then first and second down, you don't do anything. So that momentum of having that big play, that big run is sort of lost.
Gone.
3rd down, don't do anything. And now it's 4th and goal from the 4. I think it'd be different if, let's say, Texas scored, kicks an extra point, and then K-State scores and then goes for 2. I probably would still kick the extra point, but I'd have a different feeling because you just punched it in the end zone. And there is something between the ears of having a team just score on you and then right back at it going, we're going to put it in the end zone again from a couple of yards out, rather than we just stopped you 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, and now you're going for it on 4th and 4. We feel pretty good about what we've done.
I questioned the decision while it was happening that it shouldn't. Because listen, the kid had made a kick too. He hadn't missed every kick. This was the worst thing.
Put it between
one
the
was a
uprights
bad
from
snap.
45.
He missed one kick, and then he made the kick that was an important kick.
Yeah,
the biggest one to help him go to overtime. So I think at that point you probably just survive and go play another one because your defense was playing well. I am 1,000% behind. If Texas had scored a touchdown, you go for 2 on the first overtime. I'm all for that. Every time, if you're on the road, you go for 2 because eventually you're going to have to go for 2.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get in one of these things where it takes like 7 possessions to do it, you're running out of your best 2-point play.
Yeah.
So I think you absolutely go for 2 the first overtime if you're on the road and you're the team that's the quote-unquote lesser team, the underdog or whatever. If you get to go second, you go for 2. They didn't have to worry about that because they held Texas because Texas offense was garbage for the last – I had lunch at my parents' house all the way up in Independence. I got in the car, and I drove to Lee Summit, which is 17 hours or 15 or 18 minutes. K-State scored 3 touchdowns. From the time I got in my car till I was in my driveway. I mean, they had taken control of the game.
That was the touchdown, interception, touchdown, fumble.
And then they missed the extra point.
Yeah.
Or that they didn't miss it. They botched it, so it was tied.
The snap.
When I got home, and I was watching the rest of it, I was like, they have totally taken control of this game. I was listening to Stan and Wyatt as during the game, and, Stan was maybe selling it like there's still a game here. But I think he could feel that Texas was kind of crumbling in that little possession. And by the time I got home, I was like, this dude was right. I mean, they were falling apart. And that's why
and they were starting to bicker, too, because the wide receivers and Malik Murphy were starting to
It wasn't going to get
chirp
better
at each other
in the second overtime.
That was my
That's
main
why I'm like,
point.
just play the other overtime. And it's super disappointing for them because we talked about this last week. It was decision day. The top 6 teams were playing each other. There were 5 teams with 1 loss and 1 team, Kansas, with 2 losses. And, you're going to be in real trouble had you lost a game. And, Oklahoma's in trouble. K-State's in trouble. And Iowa State's in trouble now. if you win, you're in good shape. Like Oklahoma State looks great right now.
Yeah, they are in
because they're playing three
They're in the
brand new
catbird.
teams. Now, for some reason, they're a 2.5-point favorite or something on the road at UCF. So the world still doesn't believe in Oklahoma State, and they have, basically won most of these games against the better teams, very close fashion. I mean, they don't beat K-State without all the turnovers. The KU game came right down to the wire. The Oklahoma game came right down to the wire. UCF has had some close ones. I mean, they battled up in Manhattan. They were garbage in Lawrence.
Yep.
But
they were up by 30-something against Baylor.
Baylor and lost, and they took it down to the wire against Oklahoma. They're a talented team. What they don't have is like a rush defense, so I expect Ollie Gordon to run for 1,000 yards or something, and that's what they should do, just get in and get out and be done with it. But Texas is in good shape now. But Texas, I mean, I don't think we trust Texas enough yet to write them down. They're going to go to Ames the last game of the year. We've got all that little 5-star culture versus 5-star player stuff still hanging there. You know what I mean? So that stuff is there for them. The race is not over, but there is certainly some leaders now. But I mean, Kansas is playing hot right now. If they win out, that means they will have beaten K-State, and some things would happen, and they don't need 17 layers of help, right? They're going to need a couple losses from the teams.
Can you? We're hanging out with Todd Lee, but we'll get factor fishing in the next segment. Can you differentiate? Because I've seen this since Missouri lost to Georgia, and we were out last night, and somebody was like, Missouri, how'd they play? I didn't get a chance to see it, and obviously not a big football fan. I said they won 3-2 in extra innings. No, I said, you know what? They played well. They played well. They had a lead in the second half. They ended up losing by 9. A big mistake there in the fourth. But you know what? All things considered, they played Georgia the best of anybody in the country the last 2 years. They've lost by a total of 10 points in the last 2 years to Georgia. Can you differentiate between moral victories are stupid and nobody has a moral victory and no, you have some things about your program that are there with Georgia. You aren't 1 through 4 deep with Georgia in stacking recruiting classes, but the players you have, and you're a play here or there away from Georgia, because no moral victories would be saying that losing the way they did in Athens would be the same as losing 60-3, and it's just not.
I think
the
there
same.
are there's maybe this year, maybe next year, moral victories for Missouri, but after a while, no.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think they're still in that. If Alabama loses to Georgia by 9 points, that's not a moral victory,
right?
Because of where they are in their program. Yeah. But I think there's absolutely for Kansas still with Lance Leipold. I think for Missouri, the coaches don't ever say that, but I don't have any problem saying for Missouri that was a moral victory. Now, what they have to do now is you have to beat Tennessee.
Yeah, there's no moral victory this weekend. It's a win or a loss.
Yeah, it's different because Tennessee is fine. Listen, Tennessee beat Alabama last year. They were right there on the cusp of some things. But they're okay. But this is not Georgia, all right? Tennessee is in the same kind of spot when you're building your program as Missouri is, like as long as the coach has been there and kind of all those things. One of the things that Eli's talked about for a couple of years was like, Kentucky, they were much further along in their program with Mark Stoops as the head coach. And we're seeing real growth with Missouri throughout the time that he's been there.
Having a defensive coordinator for more than a year is nice.
It's something, isn't it? And they're showing
sometimes
real progress, right?
Yeah.
So, I think this is probably the last moral victory you can have. And then after that, you just
Agreed.
If you didn't beat Georgia, you don't beat Georgia. We didn't beat Georgia. That sucks.
And even if
maybe
you
we'll just never beat Georgia. You know what I mean?
But even if it's not called like a moral victory, it's like maybe it's not. It doesn't have to be a moral victory.
It's not a devastating loss.
Yeah, but you can come out of that game and say there are real things that you can hang your hat on to build on and feel good about coming out of that game. You don't feel good that you lost because again, you led by 3 in the second half. You had the ball down 6 at midfield with 7 minutes to play and an opportunity to shock the world.
What they need, all of them. I mean, you're talking about K-State being close. I like Will Howard, okay? Will Howard is not an elite quarterback who's going to make the play that wins the game every week. He's made some plays that have lost some games. He was bad against Oklahoma State. It wasn't all his fault on that play call there. You know what I mean? But he had the fumble late or in their own end that set up Texas, those plays. Brady Cook's fine, okay?
Yeah.
But Brady Cook is not elite. Brady Cook is not, I don't think, going to be a 10-year backup in the NFL. I mean, he's not that standard of quarterback. And they're going to need that to beat Georgia.
Yeah.
They can do all the rest of the stuff, and you can have some 5-star wide receivers, and you can get some guys to come in and make plays. But I don't think you're beating Georgia more than one time out of 5 without having a quarterback who's a Sunday player. And that's what Eli Drinkwitz needs to get.
Well, and that's what we've seen.
Everybody needs
well, with
to get.
these programs, we've seen it, whether it's Bishop or Klein or Roberson or Schuyler, if it's, Todd Reesing, Jalen Daniels at times, Jason Bean at times even, but Reesing certainly is that guy. And then Chase Daniel and Brad Smith and Gabbert and James Franklin helped win 2 East championships. Drew Lock wasn't the best team overall that played, but he put up amazing numbers.
You'd
and
love
still
to have
has
him on this team right now.
Absolutely. I mean, if he was on this team right now with the way they're running the football and all of that stuff, yeah, that'd be great. But we've seen the best version of these programs have been when they have had difference-making quarterbacks. Not necessarily here's this skill position player, here's that skill position player, because you're not going to go man-to-man against Georgia or Texas and just recruiting class and talent across the board and just line up. You got to have somebody that can make a difference.
I've never been a huge fan of Stetson Bennett, okay? But Stetson Bennett won a couple of titles. They did not win the titles because they had Stetson Bennett. They had a billion other players, and Stetson Bennett was fine there. That's not going to work for Missouri.
Well, and Georgia won the game because their quarterback was better than Missouri's quarterback. Carson
and he's
Beck,
very good.
Yeah, Carson Beck was better. He's better than Stetson Bennett, but he was better than Brady Cook.
The best legit quarterback that Kirby Smart has had that he's allowed to play. I mean, Josh Fields maybe could have been, but he didn't really get to play. But I think this is a guy who I've heard plenty of people talking about. He will be moving up draft boards. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
You sit there and we were joked last week a little bit about Clemson and Dabo and the whole thing. I think they're a great example. They have pros all over the field there, but they have been wrong at quarterback for the last 2 years now, 3 years, whatever you want to call it. They have had 5-star quarterbacks, but sometimes they're wrong on the rankings.
They've won a national championship with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and then they got a 5-star quarterback in DJ Ugalele and this Cade Kublik.
Kublik, yeah.
He's not been good enough. He's not Deshaun Watson, and he's not Trevor Lawrence. They got 5 stars next to him, and that's why they're not winning these games.
Yeah.
They proved that they're good enough to do everything else and beat Notre Dame when they had to rally the troops and all that stuff. You got to have a quarterback. I talk about this with Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got a lot of really good things this year. Their defense is much better than it's been. They've had these 4th and 1 stops, doing all these things, helping win games and getting turnovers and doing all that stuff. And Dylan Gabriel's fine. He's fine. He's Brady Cook or whatever. He's not Baker Mayfield. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not Caleb Williams. He might not even be Spencer Rattler. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, wow.
So,
take that, Dylan Gabriel.
Listen, me as an Oklahoma fan, nobody cares about all this much of it. He's got another year of eligibility if he wants to, because he can do that 6th year with all this stuff. I think the best thing for Oklahoma would be that he goes and he tries to go play pro football and get on a roster, and I don't think he's going to get to do that. What they need to do is they've got a 5-star kid.
Hand it over to the next guy who's
has
a stud.
Played some possessions this year, and he was the number 1 quarterback, whatever, pro style, blah, 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 out of Texas, and he needs to be their freaking guy, because that's how they're going to try to be elite again.
Yeah.
They're at their best when you have a player at that position who can do it. So,
and can Avery do it at K-State? And is Sam Horn going to be around for one more year
who
at
knows?
Mizzou, or is he going to transfer?
He doesn't even smell the field.
Yeah. Is he a guy that,
Is Arch Manning ever going to take a snap for Texas?
Is he going to transfer somewhere? Maybe transfers to Mizzou. I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe
how about
transfers to
KU?
K-State.
I
mean, honestly,
I meant KU when I said K-State. It's got Avery, but KU?
Has Archie Manning told Texas, you're not playing me, we're out of here? He's not taking a snap.
Well, he's got 4 games he can play. So.
But he hasn't taken a snap.
I want him out there just to showcase a little bit. Yeah. If he was going to play, like that second half would be like when you brought somebody else in because Malik Murphy.
Or that they were beating BYU by 30 points. I mean, he could get not a snap.
But when you got wide receivers chirping at the quarterback and the quarterback chirping back, and then it's like,
that's 5-star culture versus 5-star players.
It's a great point. 5-star players. Take that, Sark. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. A little fact or fiction on the other side of the break. More Zone next. All right, let's play a little fact or fiction here on Sports Radio 810 at WHB. That's the correct way to pronounce it. Fact or fiction here in this segment.
I hope we don't end up tied.
Me too, actually.
I'd have to come up with a tiebreaker.
It's a longer first segment, so I hope we don't end up tied here.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let's see what we got here with a little fact or fiction. Let's start with Todd, since he's feeling pretty down from Bedlam. So we'll start with him.
That sounds good. We'll pick you up
Bring
here,
it up
Lebo.
over and over.
Well, hey, how about this? Welcome to early November, Lebo.
Yep.
It's now totally fair game to start playing Christmas music.
I'll stand on this. I don't care if I lose. Fiction.
Stand on it.
You can stand on it all you want. Dylan?
Where you standing, Dylan?
Fact.
Fact.
Whoa, no, guys, no, it's fiction, baby.
That's right.
It's absolutely a
The
fact.
day after Thanksgiving, let it rip, Michael Bublé.
And
That's
we have
all
an
fine.
early Thanksgiving
We
this year.
do.
You get extra Christmas time.
We got plenty. I love Christmas.
How about this? I'll play Christmas whenever the hell I want to.
That's
I'll
fine.
play Christmas in
Fiction.
July.
Fiction.
All right, so Jason gets
Christmas
half.
in May.
Jason gets half a point
Thank you.
just because he stood on it.
I stood on it.
Fact or fiction, Dylan? I've been revisiting The Killers recently, and I think they need to be more highly regarded as one of the best American bands of the modern era. Fact or fiction?
I'll say fact, and I'll hopefully say that you say fact as well. So fact.
I'll say sure.
It's a good American band. They've got a lot of good songs, and they make people excited at Mizzou Arena when they sing Mr. Brightside.
That's true too.
Change those words on that. I'll go ahead and say fact. Yeah, that's got probably music of your youth.
It's a fact, baby.
All right, we all got a point for that.
Everybody
Cool.
gets a point. Listen, I mean, every album
They're
has
making new
like
records,
3 or
aren't
4
they?
bangers. They had a new single come out recently, which is what sent me back down the rabbit hole. But Hot Fuss is unbelievable, man. It's what an album. All the way
record.
through, though.
Good American band. Vegas band, right?
Vegas band, that's right. I thought maybe they might get the Super Bowl Vegas nod for the halftime show or something,
Probably
but I don't think.
But yeah, I mean, it's that.
Since Jason had never heard of them.
Well, the
Yeah.
song that I know, it's like I'm Mr. Brightside. Let's go team.
Yes.
Let's go team.
That- not the
Let's
original
go
lyrics,
team. Isn't
yeah.
that what they chant?
I mean,
chant
it's
there in Columbia.
Hot Fuzz
Let's
is,
go team.
Ginny was a friend of mine.
We
Mr.
like
Brightside,
us.
smile like you mean it. Somebody
Yes.
told me all these things that I've done.
Somebody told me all these things I've done is the one. Is that the one that goes? I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier.
I got
Is that
soul,
the,
but
I
I'm
love
not
that
a
part of the song.
soldier.
Oh, you know what? That's
You know that
I
song.
know those songs. I had no
This
idea
is the
you
know
crazy
all these
thing.
songs.
I know all those songs.
If you go
yeah.
listen to Hot Fuss, which came out almost 20 years ago in 2004, you will know half of these songs, and the other half are still bops.
Put it on the list.
You really should. It's a great album.
Put it on the list, Jason.
Otis Redding's better.
Fact or fiction? Jason, this is to you.
Okay.
I, personally, knowing the result, am extremely glad that St. Louis City talked such mad, tremendous amounts of bleep in the regular season.
Oh, I mean, that's a fact. That's an easy
Totally
fact. Are you
fact.
kidding me? That's a
I was out covering that game. That was an awesome
lay
atmosphere, and there were plenty of St. Louis fans there, and I'm glad they were sad.
Dylan,
Me
fact?
as well.
It's of course it's a fact.
It's a fact.
In this
Layup.
instance, I just a free layup for a reminder that being on the wrong end of trash talk is okay. If you're on the right end of the trash talk, come playoff
Yeah,
time.
at the
being
end.
being on the right side of the big brother to St. Louis's little brother in sports. That's nice being the big brother.
It really is.
And they know it.
It really is.
Todd, you'll go ahead and take this one.
Fact or fiction, Lebo, the Chiefs should try something absolutely insane coming out of the bye week and see if anyone other than Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Justin Watson can play on the outside.
Sure, I think it sounds like a fact for you. You like that.
Yep, same reasoning.
That is insane, and I'll say fact. They should just insane in the membrane. Let's do that. Also the Killers.
Go fact yourself. Of course it's a fact. It's got to happen. I don't know who it's going to be.
Insane in the membrane.
It's really not the Killers.
Are you sure?
Yeah, 95% at least. This one may have a little more to figure out here for you, Dylan. Fact or fiction? Somewhere deep down in places I don't like to talk about at parties, I desperately want Kadarius Toney to get like 45% of the snaps against the Eagles because I still think he might be one of the 2 best wide receivers on this football team.
I'll go fact.
I liked where you went there with a few good men.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go fact with that one.
I think it's insane, but I'll say fact because you're kind of crazy.
I want him on that field.
Yes.
I need him on that field.
Yeah.
You use words like drops, separation, and Mahomes. You use these words as a punchline. We use them as a backbone of a life spent catching something. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the very blanket of coverage in which they provide, and then questions the manner in which I can't get open under it.
I think Kadarius Toney can get open. I still believe. But I understand what it says about me as a person. Fact or fiction, Jason?
Yes.
College basketball does not need to be played until Thanksgiving, if not Christmas.
Oh, fact.
Oh, I'm going to say fiction. I won a parlay last night.
There you go. I like that.
I'll go fact as well.
Lebo, I hope the parlay helps because that's absolutely a fact.
It is a fact, but I'll take my parlay.
Nice.
I get
tied
it.
at 5.
And now we're also conveniently tied. So how about this one, fellas? Copy and pasted from last week, bringing it back around. For better or for worse, Jalen Daniels will play for KU again this year, enough to remove the possibility of a medical redshirt.
Fiction. I'm not changing on that.
Everyone said fact last week, I believe.
No,
was it split last week?
I said fiction. He's going to go to the portal.
Were you the only one who said fiction then? Okay, maybe that's what it was.
And he didn't go to Ames.
No.
So he's not.
That's why I'm bringing it back up. So Lebo stands on fiction.
Even though he was the first guy in the office yesterday.
That's what we hear.
Dylan?
I had to go with fiction with Lebo here. I had to switch mine if I was on fact last time.
Restate it again.
Jalen Daniels will play for KU again this year, enough to remove the possibility of a medical redshirt, which would now mean 1 regular season game and a bowl game, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go fiction. Yeah,
I think we've reached fiction territory.
It's false.
666. We're all tied,
and that's the right question to ask it on because that feels
mark of the beast.
That feels bad. That doesn't make me feel good, but I think that we're on the same page.
I just keep hearing rumblings from people thinking this is what's going to happen.
I know,
but
I know.
I mean, I can't remember who it was. I wish I would have kept track of who it was. It was college football. Somebody on Saturday said Jalen Daniels is going to be a big time get in the portal, but they weren't being a smartass about it.
They were matter-of-factly talking.
It was matter-of-factly saying Jalen Daniels is going to be a big time get for somebody in the portal this offseason. It's a name to keep an eye on.
Somebody should figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody dig into that.
Somebody should. Dylan leads us off on this one, right?
How about another injured quarterback? Aaron Rodgers last night said, "Give me a few weeks." When asked about his return from his torn Achilles, he's been warming up on the field for weeks. He's been warming on the field for weeks. That's your precursor. Fact or fiction? He's still not throwing another regular season pass for the Jets this year. Fact or fiction?
Fact.
Fact.
That's a fact.
Oh, really? All right. Yeah, fact it up, baby.
Listen, if he went out in a game, he's standing there throwing the ball.
Yes.
He has not moved 6 inches one side or the other.
And he's not having to then just instinctually press his back foot to try to get outside the pocket.
All for show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, while we're at it, all for show. He's Aaron Rodgers. This is what he does. The next 3 games, at Vegas, at Buffalo, home against Miami. They're 4-4 right now, and their offensive line stinks. What's going to happen, mark this if you'd like, Dylan. What's going to happen is that Aaron Rodgers is going to say he could return or he could have returned, but it'll be right around the time the Jets are mathematically eliminated, and he's going to say he's focusing on getting to 100% for next year. That he totally could have come back if they were better, but they aren't, so he won't.
Yeah.
And that will also be fiction when he says it, but it's fact that that's what's going to happen. Fact or fiction, Jason? The AFC team I am most concerned about as a potential playoff matchup with the Chiefs is the 5-3 last place in the North Cincinnati Bengals. Fact or fiction?
I'm going to go with, just because of that history, I'm going to say fact for you.
I think it's going to be fact. I think the Ravens are also someone to look out for, but there's just been so many games between the Chiefs and Bengals, and they just keep winning now.
These 3-point games. I bet if they play each other, it might be a 3-point game come later on this year.
Could be.
So you're going fact also,
I'll
Lebo?
go fact, yeah.
Dylan?
You're concerned. You've had shocks in your life.
Won 4 in a row.
Yep, and I'll agree with Lebo on the Ravens and Bengals being the two teams to worry about, but I agree with you, fact, on the Bengals being scariest.
The Bengals and the Ravens are certainly the two scariest in my book right now.
But the Ravens are more.
I'd rather see the Ravens in the playoffs than on the Chiefs. So it is a fact.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the fact, Jack. That's the fact, Jack.
I don't usually buy into this, but it's partially like a, hey, do it in the playoffs, Baltimore kind of thing. We haven't fully seen it, even though I do think they're legitimate. But yeah, the Bengals are kind of spicy.
They've not only been winning, they've been dominating.
Yeah,
games. So,
they look real good.
Yep.
I'm excited to see what
And
they end
North
up
is
doing.
salty.
But I would feel better about Chiefs Ravens than I would Chiefs Bengals. I think right now.
Cincinnati's the 7th seed right now, so I mean,
Crazy.
In a few weeks, we'll see.
Yeah.
They've already lost the Ravens. They'll play them again in a couple. Their schedule is going to get a little rough.
That whole division.
They've already been beating teams.
So they go to Jacksonville, they go to Baltimore. They got a tough stretch coming up for the Bengals.
That division's fun. Speaking of fun things in football,
yeah.
Fact or fiction? In a redraft of the 2022 NFL Draft, Trent McDuffie would go top 10.
He was the what number cornerback taken?
3rd.
He ended up being the 3rd corner, way after Sauce and Stingley.
Let's go. Sure. Say fact. He's been really good.
Dylan?
Fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
That's a
I
fact.
wanted to make it top 5. It's very hard to do that
Yeah, I
when
don't
teams
do
still
that.
want quarterbacks, and I think the Lions are happy with
Tim's right
Aiden
on the
Hutchinson
number.
at 2. Stingley and Sauce have both been pretty good, but top 10 I think is like pretty much a lock, which is incredible.
Yeah, he's tied in forced fumbles with defensive ends.
That's awesome.
And
Is the
the
quarterback.
quarterbacks were great that year. Who were the quarterbacks?
Quarterbacks were late.
That
was
Pickett
right?
Pickett was the first
Yeah.
one. So yeah, I don't think any of the
Pickett,
quarterbacks.
Willis, Ritter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not hopping. But you do have some receivers. Garrett Wilson went 10. Chris Olave went 11. He's hopping into that top 10. It's an interesting draft, but not for the reasons you would think. And McDuffie is certainly top 10. I don't think Kyer Elam is going to make the jump there if the redraft goes down.
Yeah.
Fact or fiction? Given the chance to start building an NFL team today, I would take C.J. Stroud over Caleb Williams or Drake May right now. I'm losing a year of C.J. Stroud's contract. We've seen him in the NFL some. This first year will be gone.
Yeah, give me the known. I'll say fact.
I'll go fact.
I don't want Drake May anywhere near my team, and I'm not sure I want Caleb Williams. Maybe he's just not as big. C.J. Stroud's a big dude, man. So I'll go whatever the word is to say you like C.J. Stroud.
It's
He's
a
proven
fact.
It too, yeah.
It's a fact. Yeah,
That is a fact.
I mean, Dylan touched on it. He's done this at an NFL level really, really, really successfully so far, and
It is funny though.
It's
'cause
amazing.
He was so great last week. He threw 5 touchdowns or whatever. But the week before, he was not very good, and they lost to the freaking awful Panthers. So
He's got
know.
14 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season.
check me next week. We'll see what it looks like.
sure.
But I mean, he is.
He's got there's no running game in Houston, and
your
he's
fact
turned
or
the ball over
fiction
once.
would be to the Carolina Panthers GM. That's the fact or
the
fiction.
Carolina Panthers need to
Fact or
do some
fiction?
soul searching.
Buyer's remorse.
Yeah, that's a fact. Last one here. Everyone tied up 10-10-10. I sure hope I don't have to end up coming up with a tiebreaker for you. Fact or fiction? Dylan mentioned Red Dawn this morning. It just made me think of this. I've seen the original Red Dawn and the 2012 remake, which I saw in theaters. And the remake's a better movie.
I mean, I've never even seen the remake, and I know it's fiction.
You were first.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably fiction.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it's
wasn't this the 12th one? Or-
the original.
yeah.
The original is a great movie of my youth, and I don't think anything. I was just in my office, and Footloose was on, the real one, and it's way better than. I didn't see the reboot, but it can't be as good as the original, so
Right.
it's fiction. Wolverines, Red Dawn.
Wolverines.
Give it to me.
Same answer and reason as well.
He should have tried.
So none of you have
way.
seen the remake, though, correct?
I won't watch it.
Correct.
No,
I won't
me
watch
too.
it either.
Listen, guys, I don't think
let's
it's
just go to
I
break.
don't think it's fair to judge movies you haven't seen.
What's the tiebreaker?
What's the tiebreaker?
But the Red Dawn remake was booty. It was
Oh,
horrendous.
okay,
You're
so
all
we're
right.
all-
It's
okay,
all a
great.
fact. Everybody has 11 points.
I was gonna be
You're
so
all
disappointed
okay.
in you.
The original is a good movie. The remake stunk.
Avenge me.
So here's your tiebreaker. I was talking about this with Kent Swanson yesterday, and I'm thinking about it again now. I need your top 3 nuts or legumes.
All right. So anything that we think is a nut but may not be a nut. Okay.
Okay.
You heard me.
Okay.
All right. So no mounds.
No, mounds would be disqualified, and
right.
it's not stuff that has nuts in it.
Oh, okay. So it can't be like peanut butter.
You're putting. It's not quite a Mount Rushmore because it's too many things. 3 is fine. I'm having a hard time coming up with 4. I think 3 nuts. What are your top 3 nuts in order?
Okay.
Break the tie.
All right. We'll do that next. right, tiebreaker time.
Top 3 nuts, legume, whatever, the popular definition of a nut. Lebo, what are your top 3 nuts?
I have cashew.
Number 1?
Almond, smokehouse flavored. It's the ones I like from Blue Diamond. And peanuts in a shell at a baseball game.
Jason?
I have cashew, had the peanuts, and then I went with the walnut.
Dylan?
Cashew, almonds, and the regular Planters peanuts as well.
Just a little.
You guys all went
cocktail
cashews 1-1?
Yeah.
We love cashews.
Cashews aren't in my top 5. Cashews are overrated.
What's your top 3?
Peanuts, I mean, contribution to the game. Peanut butter, you can't live without peanuts. I went peanuts, almonds, pecans were my 1, 2, 3. Forced to decide on the list, though. Jason, I'm a little allergic to walnuts, so you can't win. Lebo, the victor. Cashew, almond, peanuts.
I almost went pecan over walnut.
That would have helped.
In a pie.
Macadamia, though. Check that out.
The Zone is presented by Guaranteed Foods, delivering all natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We will talk with Braden Gall coming up about 15 minutes from now. Get some college football on the docket with Braden Gall, ESPN Radio Athlon Sports, our college football insider. 913-912-4810. So I went through the, every year when the playoffs get set, we do like the little playoff eliminator with, it turns out to be, there's like 7 or 8 different categories, but there are 5 of them that sort of stand out. And it's a mixture of the offensive and defensive side from like whether it's a DVOA or it could even just be, a scoring defense. Third down percentages in there. One of the categories, point differential is in there. Point margin or scoring margin is in there as well. And so this is the first time we've done this, that to go through and look at the midway point, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
Hey, also, real quick, little NFL news.
Yes,
this
please.
May or may not be a playoff team. Will Levis officially the starting quarterback for the Titans. Ryan Tannehill will back him up.
They are not a playoff team right now because they are not in the playoffs. If you haven't seen, if the playoffs were to start today, it'd be a weird season, but the number 1 seed would be the Chiefs, number 2 Baltimore, number 3 Jacksonville, number 4 the Dolphins, number 5 Pittsburgh, number 6 Cleveland, number 7 Cincinnati. Number not making the playoffs, Buffalo.
You may say, is that the entire AFC North? The answer would be yes.
The answer is yes. It is the entire AFC North, along with Chiefs, Jacksonville, and Miami, along with 3 division winners and the North. So looking at the 5 different categories and finding the teams, I went to AFC and NFC just to find the teams that fit because the championship teams end up being all 5 categories. Like last year, actually 6 categories, but still. I cut it down to 5 midway point because I can't remember which one it was. It was like, it doesn't make sense halfway through. We'll get to that at the end of the season. But last year, 2 teams met all 6 of the categories. Eagles and Bills. 1 team met 5 of the 6 categories. That was the Chiefs.
Interesting.
So there were 3 teams that had at least 5 of the 6 categories. It was Eagles, Bills, Chiefs. That was that was last year. So this year, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 teams this year that right now, halfway through, are at least 5 of the 6 categories where they rank right now and where their standings are and all of that stuff. There is 1 team in the NFL that is 6 for 6 in all the different categories. You guys want to guess which team in the NFL has all 6 of the categories that they are? It's either top 5 or top 10. Some of them are top 3. Just looking at Super Bowl winners, Super Bowl participants, and where they ranked in all these different things, and then where you what marker you sort of had to be at. Like the last 10 years, the scoring defense is top 5. The last 15 years, it's like top 3 scoring margin and point differential, things like that. Like these offensive and defensive numbers, DVOA in there, some of those things. But what team would you guess right now, halfway through, is 6 for 6 in all these different categories?
I've really got 2 or 3 that I'm really kicking around, but I'm going to go ahead and say Baltimore.
Dylan, you want to throw a dart as to
take one of the NFC ones
right
from
now?
me, so I can't.
You could say Baltimore if you want to.
You could say
or you could say the
Baltimore,
Chiefs.
I guess,
he could say, he could say the Texans if he wants to. He could say whatever he wants. He could say Mizzou. That's fine.
I'll go Eagles.
Eagles. The one team with every category is Baltimore.
Hey,
Baltimore.
Eagles would have been my second guess.
Yes, Baltimore, all 6. There is one other AFC team that has that fits into the category of 5 of the 6.
That's probably the Chiefs.
Chiefs.
It is okay. All right, we're doing okay here.
So of those playoff teams, of those teams that we went through that are in the playoffs, it is the Chiefs. They are the other team that is with 5 of the 6. There are 3 NFC teams that have 5 of 6.
Oh,
meet
really?
the 5 of 6 categories.
Really?
Yeah.
Niners
and Eagles.
Are you counting the Eagles as one of the has 5? Or you?
Yeah. Niners and Eagles both are 5 of 6.
Is it Dallas?
Dallas.
Woo!
Dallas has 5 of 6 as well. So it's Baltimore's the only one right now. And then you've got 4 other teams that are sort of right there.
Okay.
Of the teams that are currently in the playoffs. But there is another team in the NFL that is not currently in the playoffs that is 6 for 6 in every one of these categories.
I wasn't ready for that curveball, Jason.
Yeah. That is a curveball. You thought I was going fastball there.
I thought you were done.
I went off speed. It's my sweeper. New cool pitch. Same pitch, new name.
Buffalo's the best team not currently in the AFC playoff picture. You say it's an AFC team, you said, right? Or you didn't say?
I didn't say
I
AFC.
went straight to the AFC because I don't think there's another NFC team that fits that for me.
Yeah, I mean, you already got 3 in the NFC with 5 of 6. So
okay, I'm I'll file Buffalo, but I'm hoping that it's somebody else way more interesting.
Dylan, want to throw a dart?
The Steelers. I'm going to be so mad.
The
They have a
Steelers are in the
negative point.
playoffs.
They have a
And they're-
oh,
and
you're right. Yeah, that's true.
they're in
You
the
can't be
playoffs.
idiot when teams in that division.
So here are the teams to choose from.
Yeah.
Bills, Jets, Patriots,
Yep.
Texans, Colts, Titans, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. One of those teams is 6 for 6.
I feel like
with Baltimore.
if I don't say Buffalo is the easy answer, I'll regret it. But I feel like I'm walking into a trap.
And that would be mine as well. And I'll do another one that was my second. I'm actually gonna give 2. It could be the Colts or Texans. I feel like. Is it either of those?
It is not. It's Buffalo.
Okay. All right. So the league this is still reflective of kind of how we feel about these teams.
It's reflective of, even though Buffalo
they're 6 for 6 though.
is not in the playoffs right now, they are 6 for 6 because of where they're showing up in some of the metrics. And, I mean, they're number 2 in the AFC in point differential, in scoring margin.
Yeah,
they're plus 80.
They're plus 80.
Now they're 5-4, but they're plus 80. Baltimore's number 1.
Which also makes them number 1 in the league because the Niners are plus 78 on the NFC side.
Yep, that's right. So Buffalo is number 2 in the entire league in point differential.
Interesting.
At 80. They are plus 80. But again, they're 5-4 right now. We'll see how the season shakes out. Some of that also is because baked into these numbers is the awful start for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So Cincinnati doesn't show up in any of the categories. They are 0 for 6. But they started from such a uphill climb from how bad they were the first few weeks. I bet if we just looked at the last 4 weeks, they'd be probably, near the top or one of the teams that's 5 of 6 or all 6 categories, something like that. So Cincinnati's one to at least keep in mind that the numbers don't reflect what the numbers reflect more what the first part of the season was rather than the second half of the first half, if that makes sense.
Well, you have to calculate it for the Bengals starting in week 6 or whatever at the end of the year and see, yeah.
That's right. Which is, why a couple of years ago, I don't think the Bengals were one of the teams that fit the criteria, actually. The Bengals were not in 2021, there were 2 AFC teams that matched the criteria, and it was Chiefs and Bills. So, yes. In 2020, there were 2 teams that matched the criteria in the entire NFL, and it was Chiefs-Bucks.
That's really interesting.
In 2019, there were 2 teams that matched the criteria in the entire NFL. It was Chiefs-49ers. And last year, there were 2, and that was the Bills and Eagles. And there was 1 team that was 5 of 6, and that was the Chiefs.
Do you have the ability to break it down for where the Chiefs are on the criteria, or where they are currently lacking?
The only thing they're currently lacking in is not that big of one as sort of an indicator. Top 10 in scoring offense is one of the 6.
Sure, okay.
They're number 12 right now.
Yeah.
So if they were just a couple touchdowns over the course of the season better, they might be all 6. Right, I mean it's sort of that close, but they are securely in spots that are what I think are some of the more important ones and metrics and things like that. Whereas you should be good at scoring off. If you're going to win a Super Bowl, you should be good at scoring offense. You're probably going to be in the top 10 or even top 5. But yeah, they're there. It's just those because I started doing it in 2019, so it is. Picked out. Actually, you know what? I 2018. I apologize. There was only 1 team in 2018 that matched all criteria in the entire league. Only one team that matched the criteria in the entire league in 2018, and that was the Patriots.
Yeah.
And they won the Super Bowl. The closest, with only missing one category, was the Rams, oddly enough, in 2018.
It's really interesting. Also, here's a little fun stat for you. So the Chiefs are 12th in scoring offense.
Mm-hmm.
They're 8th in points for. How fun is that? The Chiefs are 8th in scoring.
Yeah.
But their offense is 12th in offensive scoring.
It's a great point with the defensive. Are you saying like 7 points for the defense here or there?
I'm saying that'll move you. So like the Chargers have 201 points. The Vikings have 206. The Chiefs have 208. Like you can a little 6. I guess the defense would also get credit for the extra point if you're going scoring offense. I'm not sure. But yeah, just a little. I was just sorting all the point differentials. Wait a second. Hey, the Chiefs are actually higher here when you sort by points for because the defense has done some scoring. Very fun.
So out of the 14 years that I went and looked back, a 14-year span of sort of putting this together, Super Bowl champions and runner-ups, one thing that has stood out above all else is, and it would make sense, like point differential, scoring margin, because, it means you're winning by a pretty decent amount and you're not in close games in the playoffs. Sometimes those are 50-50. But out of the 28 teams that have played in a Super Bowl, only 5 of them have not been ranked in the top 3 of their conference in scoring margin. Like Super Bowl winners, 3, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 6, Denver Broncos in 2015, but they were brilliant at defense. 1, 1, 5, Baltimore in 2012, defense. 10, Giants in 2011, defense. 1, 1. The runner-ups, 5, 3, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 5.
Wow.
Like, it's simplistic, right? But you also look at it and go, well, Jacksonville can make some noise. Yeah, they're 6th right now. Miami's 4th. They won by 50, and they're still 4th in the AFC in point differential. They won by 50 in a game, and they are plus 60 on the season. That means in the other 8 games they have played, they are plus 10 out of that one game. So that's just one of the indicators, but that's one to where it's like, if you aren't that, you're not going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You must be that, or you're not going to be there, because you get into 50-50 games in the playoffs, you're not going to win back-to-back or 3 in a row coin flip games in the playoffs. It's just simply not, especially this year in the AFC. You better find a way to win by a decent margin, and that's where the Chiefs' offense improving will become more and more important, because if the offense is keeping teams in closer games, even though the defense is doing their thing, coin flip game, now the ball bounces a different way, and you never know what happens there. But Baltimore and Buffalo, the only 2 teams in the entire league that are 6 for 6 right now, and only one of them is actually in the playoffs right now, halfway through. So what's crazy about what the AFC North has done is that they're all in the playoffs. We'll take a timeout. We will come back and we'll continue rolling. We'll talk with Braden Gall. We'll talk some college football coming up next.
It's time to catch up with our college football insider, Braden Gall.
Nobody cares.
Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Everyone has their own taste, and mine is just better.
Brought to you by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. Whatever you do, if you're a Missourian, we're for you. We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and we've got you covered.
All right, let's talk some college football here with Braden Gall. As you heard, presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, ESPN Radio, Athlon Sports. Joining us here in the zone. Braden, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
A
lot of 7-2 teams in your neck of the woods these days.
I tell you what, man. If you're not 7-2 or at least 6-3, then what's the point? What's the point of playing college football? That's what I've always said. If I won't talk about a team that doesn't have at least 6 wins through the first 9 games of the season at all. Never have, never will in the future. But it is crazy though that we're sitting here after a weekend of KU. Not having a letdown and going to Iowa State and winning in Ames for the first time since 2008, and Kansas State, coming back from an early deficit and going into overtime and unfortunately losing there to Texas, especially for my Texas underbet, which is not going to hit. And then Mizzou, having opportunities, but, over 60 minutes when you got a team like Georgia, you can't make mistakes, and eventually they just lean on you and win by 9, and it felt closer than that. But, even after all of that, we're talking about teams that all can win double digits this year. They can all end up winning 10 games this year when you throw in the bowl game as well, which I don't think has ever happened in the history of the area here with that. But that huge weekend it's unfortunate it ended up being 1-2 with the 3 teams.
Yeah, what's funny is I think I moved Missouri up in my rankings.
Because you're smart.
I think they showed me kind of everything that we talked about last week, which is they're going to have a really good game plan. They did exactly the things we talked about last week, which is run the quarterback and take shots. None of them were like – a lot of times you lose getting off the bus in those types of situations, and they did not. They were completely composed. Hell, the center was just testing Brady Cook's awareness at times in that game. Just like, hey, how many plays can you make when you're not ready?
Every game, he'll have at least 1 or 2 snaps that Brady Cook is not ready for. It's like clockwork. I've never seen anything like it. Tollefson, every single game, will have 1 or 2 snaps that it just is not when the snap was supposed to happen. But other than that,
was turning him into first down.
Yeah, that's right. Just back shoulder throw to Weiss.
So I think big picture, this week's game is more going to define the season than last week's game. And I think some of that's the history between Tennessee and Missouri. Some of that's because if this is a 12-team playoff, this would be a playoff game. The winner of this game could end up 10-2. The loser of this game could lose 2 or 3 games. I think both teams, like Tennessee's got Georgia next week. Obviously, Missouri's got Florida and Arkansas. Florida's weird. Arkansas's weird. Both of these teams could be defined by the season could be defined by this game because again, winner could be 10-2, loser could be 8-4. You just don't know. And I think right now, I think they're very evenly matched. I think both of them have evolved and taken huge steps forward as programs this year, and for kind of different reasons. So I just think it's a great football game. Vegas says it's basically a pick 'em. If they play their best version of themselves, I think Tennessee might be slightly better, but I don't expect them to play the best version of themselves. So if they play the regular version of themselves, I think Missouri's the better football team. So I think that's what makes a great college football game. And then, obviously the comeback for Kansas State and Texas doing everything in its power with a backup quarterback to give that game away. And then a lot of times when you say those phrases, you offend fans. And sometimes you say, "Oh, X, Y, and Z win was fluky." Like that's offensive to people, and I don't mean it to be. You have to give credit for Kansas State for taking advantage of the opportunities that were presented. But I mean, let's be honest. Like if Quinn Ewers is in there and Texas just handles its business, like they put that game away. But Kansas State made a bunch of plays. Will Howard threw the ball like crazy. They changed their game plan. I thought they went to the run almost like this is going to sound crazy. Like they almost went to the run too much with like all 4 handoffs in in the fourth quarter. Like there was a couple of times where they did it, and like you could tell they were doing it just to try to keep the defense honest. But like the way they were throwing the football was working, and clearly Texas's defensive line was too good. And so they evolved, they adapted, they played much better in the second half. And then a backup quarterback made a couple of bad mistakes for Texas. Just unfortunate that it sort of went down the way it did. I have no problem with the call. I think people. Okay. No, I think look. Like, first of all, I have very little respect for Urban Meyer, the human, but I have a lot of respect for Urban Meyer, the football coach. And he was like, no, if it was on the 2-yard line, we would have gone for it. Analytics says we go for it. Well, I don't know if he knows this, but 2-point conversions aren't on the 2-yard line. So basically you are 1 yard difference from a play that you are going to have to make to win the game at some point in the next few possessions. I'm sorry, the way that Will Howard had been throwing the football all game, all second half, I don't buy you had been the better team, prolong the game and drag it out. No, you have a chance with your hands on the football, with your offense that had been chucking it all over the yard in the second half, and you got to make 1 4-yard play to win a game on the road against Texas, who's a top 10 team. You take the chance. I got no problem with it. I think that's totally fine to put the faith in your players who had played very well in that exact scenario the entire second half. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. And certainly the play didn't play out the way anybody wanted it to if you're a Kansas State fan. But, so basically impressed with Missouri, impressed with Kansas State in the second half, and absolutely impressed with Kansas's performance. So while the record isn't what you want it to be, I don't think any less of any of those teams based on what I saw last weekend.
So the reason I would have kicked the field goal is exactly for one of the reasons why you didn't buy. So that's fine. You don't have to buy it. It's maybe it's just out of money. I don't know. I mean, it was wrong currency. It's
like if he would have gone the other way, I probably would have been like, okay, fine. You know what I mean? Like
I just think Texas was doing nothing offensively. Malik Murphy was not completing passes to open receivers. I mean, they gained a yard on their possession and kicked a field goal. And Kansas State had been, doing what they wanted to do. And if it had been Texas scored a touchdown and then K-State scored a touchdown and then he went for 2, I could understand that. But Texas had done nothing except put a field goal on the board in the second half and then did nothing in overtime. And K-State was the better team, was playing better football. And I think there's a difference between when you punch it into the end zone and then come right back and say, we're going for 2. We're going to do it right again because we just scored on you, as opposed to their first play got down to like the 5-yard line, and then the next 3 plays did nothing. And so it wasn't like there was sort of momentum that they were just chopping them up.
I get it. It's unorthodox in terms of how it, like, to your point, what do we traditionally see, right?
Right.
Oh, touchdown, 2-point conversion on the road, go for it. Okay, right. And, again, that's 1 different yard.
For sure.
We're talking about a yard. So, in theory, the statistical probability of a 3-yard play versus a 4-yard play should be about the same, roughly speaking. I'm sure there's a percentage point difference. And you're right. If this was the second overtime, even more likely to go for it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like I guess my ultimate thing is like that's not the reason you won or lost the game. Can we have an interesting debate about the discussion or the decision? And can reasonable minds that are both making very good cases kind of be right at the same time? I think 2 things can be true. If they ran the football in the very next possession, Texas pounds the football in, all of a sudden, your offense gets stopped, and all of a sudden, you don't know what's going to happen. I can't prove that. The only thing we can prove is that play didn't work.
Yeah.
So I can't prove it either way. But I just will always be – I don't necessarily buy all of the go for it all the time the way coaches are calling it right now in college football. The 4th and 1 on your own 34 in the second quarter, there's more of that this year than ever before. And maybe that's where we could, maybe we need to pull back a little bit on that, or analytics is right. More coaches need to do this. Like we've seen it, Oregon and Washington. Dan Lanning went for it on 4th and 1 like 4 times. Tennessee, Alabama. Josh Heupel went for it a couple times on 4th down, didn't get it. He came back the very next week against Kentucky, went for it on 4th down, and he got it. So I think we're seeing coaches do it more often. And I think specifically when your offense is humming and your quarterback's playing well and you're on the road as an underdog and you've made this incredibly just ridiculous comeback, I think you take your shot. And I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with your argument, which is, hey, the defense has stopped Malik Murphy most of the second half. He's made a bunch of mistakes. Let's try to extend the game to see if he can make more mistakes. Brooks fumbled the football. Like I get it all. I get both sides of it. I just don't really have I'm always going to be okay with go try to win the game.
Yeah,
especially on the road.
And the point there of it's not why they lost the game. They lost the game because they fell behind 17-0, and they had issues there coming out of the gates. And the credit is fighting back and getting into that spot. They also, missed an extra point and missed a chip shot field goal before they even went into overtime.
They should have been in the lead.
Yeah, so they
had the lead.
could have been leading.
You can't snap the ball into your holder's face.
Yeah, right. It's when he's not looking and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, because then if you've got the lead, now you put the pressure on Malik Murphy to go and make plays. Not just, okay, now you're playing with a lead or you're not playing, whatever it might be. It's a tie game. All you got to do is have one big play, put you in field goal range and kick a field goal, and now you got the lead, and that's really it. The whole fourth down, go for it and stuff like that, I feel like pendulum swinging one way or another, right? It's nobody ever goes for it, and then it's well, they should go for it every time. The best way of describing sort of the analytics is we have Cynthia Freeland on every week on Wednesdays, from the NFL Network and does all the analytics stuff. And we talk to her, and there's a lot of times where she's like, well, the analytics will say this. She's like, but, this is the route that I think, maybe that was the best way to go. And because she is not a hard and fast, okay, this is just what the numbers say. We've got to go this route. Her description was she views analytics like if you're getting ready to leave your house and you put the destination in your phone and you press directions, and there are 7 or 8 different routes or 2 or 3 different routes, and one of them says 26 minutes, but one of them says 29 minutes. And she's like, yeah, but this one has more stoplights. This one over there, I know that route. I'm going to take the one that's 29 minutes because of whatever the circumstance and the context is right now versus people that look at analytics go, well, the analytics said this and the analytics said that, would say, well, 26-minute route no matter what. That's the one I'm going to take no matter what because it's the quickest there. Well, no, there's more context. And I've always liked viewing it through that lens of, yeah, the analytics just gives you all the information. And then it's still your job to decide what to do with that information.
Yeah, and I think the best coaches, and this probably goes to scouts in baseball, right, that use Moneyball and the eye test or whatever like that. They are all tools you should use to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I think making sure you know the analytics, yes. Making sure you incorporate gut feel, yes. And Staley for the Chargers is the guy who it's only on the play sheet, right? Whatever's on the script is what we do. So I think to me it's more about there is a human element to sports, and you have to understand your players. And the best coaches know exactly what's going on with each player in each game. And there's been 160, 170, 180 snaps. You know which plays have worked with which player in which spot. The left guard's not doing this play. And for this particular game, the interior of the offensive line didn't exactly work the entire game. So, you started incorporating that into your play calling. That's called being a coach.
Yeah.
And so I think as long as you've got the analytics and you don't ignore it, and you don't buy into it blindly, I think the key is using them all as tools to make the best possible decision. And frankly, the beauty of the game, the reason that sports, college football and pro football, is America's pastime and the original reality television show in this country is because we don't know what's going to happen. And that's the whole point of it. That's the reason we watch. It's the reason it's great, and it's the reason we celebrate when we win.
Braden Gall's our guest from ESPN Radio and Athlon Sports. He is presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. So there's sort of this conversation that always takes place when a team plays a really good team or plays them close and loses, and it's moral victories and this and that. It's got an ugly definition or feel around it. The moral victory has a terrible PR staff, and so anytime you say that, it's okay, you're just you're a loser. It's a loser's mentality. I don't know if it's necessarily moral victory, but I think you can separate the feeling like you won something down in Georgia versus The way you've played Georgia the last 2 years has been better than any other team has played Georgia the last 2 years. You went down between the hedges where they have, won some. The last team to come in there thinking they were going to give them a shot walked out of there with like a 40-point loss in Kentucky.
26 in a row, guys.
Yeah, 26 in a row. And you went down there, had the ball in the fourth quarter, down 6 at midfield. Terrible mistake by Brady Cook. It happens. They also had a 13-10 lead in the second half there between the hedges. What do you take away and learn sort of the positives from that without being put into the category of there's no moral victories? It's not a moral victory because, as I said yesterday, Braden, if there are no moral victories, then you view that game against Georgia the same as a 60-3 loss.
Well, if there's no moral victories, then like 132 teams suck. And that's not the real world. Every single year. That's not the real world. There is trajectory. There's program momentum. There's proof of concept. There's I thought that was as complete a football team has looked against Georgia and Athens in years. Like years. Like the last time they lost there is 2019 against South Carolina at home. Kentucky 3 years ago, I think, went down there and lost 31-12, and that was considered a good showing. So I think you're right. You can't tell. And I did this with Tennessee a couple of weeks ago to all of my Tennessee people after they got boat raced in the second half to Alabama. I thought, no, the game plan was sound. They came out and played extremely well on the road in the first half. It was one of the best games I've seen Joe Milton play. And then the greatest coach of all time, did his job in the second half. And I think there's no shame in that. It's a learning moment about trajectory of a program. And again, that sounds like moral victory talk. But I'm not a Mizzou grad. I'm not a Mizzou fan. I don't live and die by Missouri football every single week. So I'm looking at it going, man, that was really impressive. That was really quality. That was high quality football. They were composed. They didn't shy from the moment. They went and got a D2 running back who's clearly not scared of Georgia's defense. That's good stuff. And it's all proof of concept for what you think Eli's doing. And I think that's the key. Again, is the season now defined by what happens against a team like Tennessee that's also pretty good, where you're at home, that has your number over the last few years? That's probably a little bit more important. You need to win that one to justify the moral part of the previous one. That was why, my thing with Tennessee and the Alabama was it looked – I came away with a positive vibe and feel of the program and of Josh Heupel because it looked like they are ready to compete at the highest levels in the SEC. That's the exact same phrase I would use about Missouri. They look like they are ready to compete at the highest levels consistently in the SEC, something they have never done. But you got to go prove that the next week. Tennessee did that the next week by dominating Kentucky on the road, basically. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Missouri needs to take what they did against Georgia and convert it now into the wins where you should win. Even though you're a 1-point underdog, it's a pick-em game. You're at home. Tennessee has flaws. They're very good also. Go win that game and prove that what you did against Georgia was the real version of you and is, again, this is a tremendous matchup. It's so good X's and O's wise. I can't, Baker versus Heupel and Moore versus the Tennessee defensive line, Cook and Milton, it's got everything. It is such a great matchup, and I'm an alumni of one of them, and I don't care who wins because I think it's a great football game, and I'm going to learn so much about so many different parts of the game. We're going to learn about Eli Drinkwitz and Missouri's culture. We're going to learn about Joe Milton. We're going to learn about Josh Heupel and his evolution on offense. We're going to learn about we're just going to learn so much stuff. And next year, this game is a playoff game. This game is a chance to get into the playoff. The loser does not, the winner does. And that's to me, that's what the loss to Alabama for Tennessee and the loss to Georgia for Missouri are the same thing to me. But it all leads us to this game, and one of them has to go out and finish the deal and turn the moral victory into a real victory.
Braden Gall's our guest, ESPN Radio Athlon Sports. He's presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. I don't think K-State's going to have an issue with Baylor this weekend, and then they'll get set for the Sunflower Showdown next weekend. KU lost 2 of 3, went into the bye week, came back. They had Oklahoma, and then they were going to Ames. Then they were returning home to Tech before Sunflower Showdown. Oklahoma was a big one, and then they haven't won an Ames since 2008. And they come off the bye losing 2 of 3, and they beat Oklahoma. And then they back that up by going to Iowa State and really controlling the entire game. And Lance Leipold talked last week about the importance of that game at Iowa State because, as he had said, that they hadn't handled success very well in the time, that when they had a big win, they hadn't then bounced back the next week and played well. And they did that against Iowa State. And it's interesting that it's now 2 weeks in a row, Braden, to where it's like, okay, you beat Oklahoma, don't have a letdown game. Okay, you didn't have a letdown game against Iowa State. Okay, now you got Texas Tech. Don't have a look-ahead game and see Kansas State on the schedule the next week. Like, these last 2 weeks are really fascinating from a program standpoint and sort of a discipline, a buy-in, and a focus standpoint with Lance Leipold's staff with KU because they're games they should win. They went up there and won last week. They're 3.5-point favorites this week against Tech. Take care of business, and then that makes next week all that sweeter to lead up to that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not going to lie. I've already cashed my over 6 wins, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. So from here on out, it's all house money for me personally with the Kansas Jayhawks. Do I think Kansas is going to end up in the Big 12 championship game? No. Do I think they could? Yes. Are they in the position as a program, to your point, where they have earned the benefit of the doubt? No, they have not. Chris Kleiman has. Kansas State has. Kansas has not. And so you're absolutely right. 3-point favorite, 3.5-point favorite, whatever the number is. You're at home. Look ahead / rebound / letdown, whatever cliche you want to add to it. You gotta sort of quiet all that stuff from people like us just having conversations about it, right? And so again, there's no better way. This is the beauty of a results-oriented business like college football. There's so much nuance to it. There are moral victories. There are big-picture trajectory considerations. There's all this stuff. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. And if Kansas keeps winning, they are on the verge of a truly special season. And so how special is it? It's already special. It's already special. But how special are we going to get here? And I'm fascinated by that as someone openly rooting for Lance Leipold. I think he's a good dude. I think he deserves credit for what he's accomplished, and I think he's getting it. And I think there's a lot of people in the media that are rooting for him. And so I think it's, this is one of those games where you got to go get the job done. Texas Tech has been so up and down all season. So go get the job done. And, look, we can all dream about a Sunflower Showdown for the right to play in the Big 12 championship game. We can all dream about that.
That'd be awesome. Braden Gall is our guest, ESPN Radio Athlon Sports, presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. Last one for you, and real quick, and it may not even, it won't matter in the long term, but I'm just curious as to if you can learn anything from the selection committee, the college football playoff committee tonight, whether or not Georgia moves into the number 1 spot over Ohio State, who struggled for a good portion of that game against Rutgers, and Georgia beat a Missouri team that they said was number 12 in the country last week. If that Georgia win over Mizzou is good enough to put them to number 1. If it does, do you learn anything about the college football playoff committee? And if they still sit at number 2 and Ohio State against Rutgers stays at number 1, do you learn anything about them that way?
If Ohio State's number 1, they all need to be drug tested, I guess. Maybe that's what I needed. That's what I've learned. I don't know. It's so hard. It's funny. I was talking to my buddy today, who's don't hold this against me, an Indiana basketball fan, and he's got a 5-year-old who's really good friends with my 5-year-old daughter, and he was looking at preseason AP basketball rankings, right? And so we're talking. I'll get there eventually, so just bear with me here. We're talking about it, and I'm just remembering, man, kids love rankings, We as fans love rankings. We like to argue about rankings because I'm just so cynical about the college football playoff committee because it just doesn't matter. Every single game will have been played when we have the only rankings that matter. And to your long story short, to your question, no, because even last week, as we talked about, or maybe we didn't because it was before, they contradicted themselves inside the top 4. It's just ridiculous. Ohio State's ahead of Georgia based on resume, but Michigan's ahead of Florida State based on eye test. What are we talking about? It's just so stupid. Also, I saw Ohio State in person
last weekend against Wisconsin 2 weeks ago. There's no chance that's the number one team in college football. They may end up being great. They have an elite defense, and Marvin Harrison is even better than I thought. But they may end up as number one eventually at the end of the year. But right now, there's no way you can make the case that Ohio State's the number one team in the country. You just can't. And so I would be shocked if Georgia's not number one. I think it's an easy excuse, a quality, relatively workmanlike win over Missouri at home, a very good football team that belongs in the top 12. I think it's an excuse for them to move Georgia up to number one. Ohio State sort of, puttered around with Rutgers, got a lucky call on the interception return where it should have been targeting and it wasn't. Rutgers should have gone in to score and take the lead. Rutgers also better coached than I think people think. Twitter awfully quiet, by the way, in my neck of the woods about Greg Schiano.
Really?
So, yeah, funny. Although Twitter's a total dumpster fire anyway. So not really.
Yeah,
No,
I get it. Yeah.
I think, but I'm also like I'm not counterintuitive or counterculture on purpose. I just, to your point about like moral losses, I just think you can learn as much about a team in a loss when you're doing subjective rankings about a sport where no one's schedule is the same and the talent gaps are vast. Like in the NFL, all 32 schedules and all 32 rosters are basically the same. In college football, none of that's the same. And so I learned as much about Oregon on the road against Washington as I do as Missouri on the road against Georgia. Like you learn Penn State on the road against Ohio State. Like you can learn just as much about a team in a loss. In fact, it's critical that you learn and adjust your opinions about a team in a loss. Yeah. And in the past in college football, we would just look at a loss and go, oh, 0 is better than the 1. And like that's so 1997 of people to think about college football that way. Like, I look at Oregon's body of work, which is what the committee's supposed to do, and I think Oregon's better than Washington. I know that head-to-head results matter. I know that they played. I watched every second of the game. It was one of the best games of the year. It's not the best game of the year. They were 3 4th-and-1 conversions and a missed field goal away from winning on the road. Doesn't that mean they're basically even? And, frankly, Oregon's body of work in every other game, which I thought those mattered too, is better than Washington's. So I just think Oregon's a better football team. I think Alabama today is better than Texas. I think if they played today, I'd take Alabama. I just think Jalen Milroe in his second start versus Jalen Milroe, what he did against LSU, is a totally different player. And I think Alabama's better today than they were in week 2. And I think I would rank Bama ahead of Texas. I'd have Texas ahead of Oklahoma. It's not that crazy to have a team that lost to another team. Like it happens all the time in sports.
Well, I mean, I would put the Chiefs ahead of the Broncos in my rankings in the NFL.
No,
just me. I just would. I would. I don't know why, but
no way.
I would not have them even just because they went 1-1 and they split. I think I would have one of them higher. Braden Gall, presented by Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. He's from ESPN Radio Athlon Sports, and many other ways to hear the fine opinions of Braden Gall, our college football insider. Braden, as always, appreciate the time, brother. Enjoy the games, and we will talk next week.
Yep, always a pleasure, boys.
Absolutely. There's Braden Gall talking about this last weekend of games and the results there for KU winning there in Ames, Iowa, and Mizzou and K-State not coming out on top in closer games and opportunities that were there. But a big weekend locally of taking care of business, especially on the Kansas side, to get ready for the Sunflower Showdown. And he's right about Mizzou and Tennessee. This is last week going into that game against Georgia felt like it wasn't necessarily house money, but it was, let's see what they can do. Let's see what they can do. Give it a shot. This week is you need to find a way to win. You did against Kentucky. You didn't against LSU. And now Tennessee, this is a program you're going to be comparing yourself to moving forward. And there's 10 wins on the line. If you can beat Tennessee, Florida, and Arkansas, you can have 10 wins and finish second in the East by at least a game because, you would give the other teams a loss. So we'll see. That's a big one coming up this weekend. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show next. All right, that'll do it for a Tuesday edition of the show. Coming up tonight, 6 o'clock, Little Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold, and then Jack Johnson takes over at 7 o'clock with the night shift. Srim Petro comes your way next at 2 o'clock. Thank you to Matt Tate, Todd Lebo, and Braden Gall joining the show today.
I think it might be a stew night tonight, ultimately.
Oh, really?
Let's tell people it's Jack, and maybe they'll tune in.
I was just going by the schedule.
Yeah.
Schedule said night shift with Jack Johnson. Have you seen Stu around here?
No, Sterling. I'm supposed to do radio with Sterling today, and so that was under the guise of Sterling also doing the show tonight.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
Look, here's the good news. If it's Jack, congratulations, America. And if it's Sterling, you can go to bed early. So, I mean...
Because Josh will be on there.
Yeah, for sure. That's Snooze Fest. It's a good show, whoever's hosting it. I would just prefer it be Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
A little tired of seeing Stu around here.
But there he is right there.
Ah!